Right, I'm going to go ahead and start the meeting. Let me see, I have questions already. Okay. Is everybody ready to begin? Or should we wait for a few minutes to allow more people to join us?
What do you think, Eric?
I'd pull the trigger and start.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Okay, good morning, everybody. My name is Cynthia Newman. I am the CEO and owner of Crank Marketing Group, LLC. I serve as the Vice President of Communications for the Suncoast chapter of AUSA and as the Vice President of Communications for the Patton Foundation. Today, we're proud to present the 4th installation of our Pivot to Excellence Executive Symposia and Summit Series. And today's webinar is part 1 of 3 of the Yom Kippur War History and Perspectives. So as our moderators today, I'm pleased to introduce Eric Lien, the current president of the Suncoast chapter of AUSA in Tampa and past AUSA president of the European region, and Command Sergeant Major, U.S. Army retired Larry Jasper. And at this time, I would like to turn over the virtual microphone to Eric.
Thank you very much, Cindy. My name is Eric Lien. I'm the chapter president of the Suncoast chapter of the Association of the U.S. Army, and we serve West Central Florida. We have about 8,000 members in our chapter. I've been the chapter president since 2018, and before that, I was the European region president, that's responsible for Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. And during that time, I had the pleasure to meet with General Gideon Avidor, and he was actually our vice president for Israel for AUSA. And we talked in Tel Aviv back then, and we said we should do a seminar on the Yom Kippur War. And that was about 4 or 5 years ago when we started talking about that. So this is the end product of 4 years of work. And so Gideon and I worked on that for several years. And yeah, and 2 or 3 years ago, I met Command Sergeant Major retired Larry Jasper at the 2019 Warrior Games in Tampa. And I said, why don't we do this together with Jewish war veterans? It'll be that much better. So Larry and I have been working together on that. And yeah, so what I would like to do now is, first off, I thank Cindy for putting this together technically. It's far beyond my level to do this. And Cindy worked on it for several months setting this up, and she's got an outstanding team. So General Swan, I'm going to introduce General Swan here. He is our Vice President of Education, and he was the president of the Institute of Land Warfare at AUSA. So he's going to take over in a minute. But first, I'm turning the microphone over to Larry Jasper to introduce Jewish war veterans. Larry?
Thank you, Eric. The Jewish War Veterans of the United States of America is the oldest continuously serving veterans group in the United States. We're currently celebrating our 125th anniversary. I have the privilege of being both the commander of Post 373 in Tampa and the commander of the Department of Florida. I would like to thank our partners, the AUSA, the IDF members of the Institute for Advanced Military Thinking, led by Brigadier General retired Gideon Avidor, and especially Cindy Newman for her assistance in this program. So I guess at this point, we're going to turn it over to Guy Swan.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Larry. Appreciate it very much. As Eric mentioned, I'm Lieutenant General retired Guy Swan. I serve as the Vice President for Education at the national headquarters of the Association of the U.S. Army. Before I start a couple of introductory remarks why this session is so important, let me thank Eric for the invitation and the great work he's done in several roles with AUSA, most especially standing up the Israel chapter of AUSA a few years ago, as he mentioned. I also am excited to see my old friend Gideon Avidor on the screen, looking very relaxed there, Gideon. He was our host a couple of years ago for a fascinating staff ride at the Golan and throughout Israel and down to the Sinai. And I think if you can replicate that again next year, Eric, it will be a fascinating event for everyone. I can't start without thanking Cindy. Someone always works behind the scenes to put these things together. They're not easy, so thank you very much. And to Mr. Sachs and to Larry, thank you for your service. The Jewish War Veterans is an august veteran service organization. We serve side by side with the Jewish War Veterans, and we appreciate what you all do. Let me just kind of give you some introductory thoughts about what we're going to hear today, primarily from a U.S. perspective. I know we'll hear the Israeli perspective here, but let me start with October 1973. I was a second-year officer cadet at West Point during October of 1973. And like many millions of people around the world and in the United States, we cadets were watching the events in Israel occurring at that time. At the same time, we were watching the events occurring in Vietnam, as Vietnam, our experience in Vietnam was winding down by 1973. As young officer cadets, we didn't realize at that time how momentous both of these events would be for our careers as U.S. Army officers going forward. But they were pivotal events, both of them, and in faraway places, far away from the Hudson Highlands of upstate New York. 1973 for the U.S. was a period of emerging from counterinsurgency warfare. Almost 2 decades of service in Vietnam with mostly guerrilla warfare, counterinsurgency warfare, much like what we're facing today as we come out of Afghanistan and reduce our presence in other parts of the world. So there are some parallels to what occurred there. Vietnam also cost us a lot in terms of lives, American lives and others in Vietnam, but from a strategic standpoint, it cost us time in getting ready and getting prepared for our most dangerous adversary at the time, the Soviet Union. While we were fighting counterinsurgencies in the jungles of Southeast Asia, the Soviets were getting stronger, they were building new weapons, and were becoming a very, very formidable adversary. The Yom Kippur War was a wake-up call for all of us. We're going to hear exactly how important that was to our Israeli friends online today, but it caught the attention of the United States and especially the United States Army. Most of you are aware of the relationship between General Don Starry, General Peled, General Tal that occurred at the time of the war and shortly thereafter. We learned a lot from the Israeli experience, the difficult experience of the IDF in October of 1973, but it led to many changes in our own army. Not long after the war, we established a new doctrine for the Army's operations called active defense in 1976. And by 1982, that had changed into what we called air-land battle, which became the backbone of NATO operations against the Soviets in the Cold War. Your experiences for the gentlemen who are going to talk to us today in terms of equipment and how your equipment operated taught us a lot of lessons. We developed in the late 70s and 1980s what we called the Big Five. You've heard that term, the Abrams tank, the Bradley fighting vehicle, the Patriot missile system, the Apache helicopter and the Black Hawk helicopter. All of those came out of your experience in 1973. And the United States adapted your lessons learned to make all that happen. But most importantly, and I'll close with this comment, this war, this conflict established a long-standing relationship between the United States Army and the IDF, which has continued to this day. We share lessons learned. We have a lot of exchanges on the professional military side, not to mention the diplomatic side. But that war, as tragic as it was for the Israelis in the early stages, became a pivot point, to use today's term, in our relationship between our two militaries. And let me close with a personal note for Gideon Avidor. Gideon, you may remember our good friend working here at AUSA, Jeremiah Rosman. Young Jeremiah just got his PhD, was working for us for 2 years, served in the IDF in Operation Cast Lead in Gaza. And next week, Gideon, he will start the U.S. Army Officer Candidate School, and he will become an officer in the United States Army. So I thought you would be interested in hearing that. Yeah. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Sachs. Sir, over to you.
Well, shalom and good morning or good afternoon, depending on where we're at in this world. I'm Jeffrey Sachs, the National Commander of the Jewish War Veterans of the United States of America. Thank you all for joining us today as we step back almost 48 years ago to learn about the Yom Kippur War of October 1973. I want to also thank AUSA and the Institute for Advanced Military Thinking, generals, former military officers like myself, and former soldiers internationally for making this apparently a three-part program possible. I would definitely say if you walk to Golan like I did 5 years ago, it definitely puts a perspective on how could you even fight a tank battle there. But that's besides the point. The morning of October 6, 1973 found this young Jewish teenager at synagogue like Jews around the world, fasting, which is something we do during Yom Kippur, and contemplating atonement for a whole year's worth of sins, which as a teenager were considerable. Gossip at the synagogue that day, which happens a lot, you talk to your friends, was that Israel was under attack on the holiest day of the year. And we didn't even get that word until about midday. And it's an all day of praying. Let me just say that about Yom Kippur. Remembering the 1967 war, well, this teenage would-be General Patton thought to himself, there's nothing to worry about. Those Arabs are going to be sorry again. There's no way the Egyptian army is going to make it across the Suez Canal and breach the Bar-Lev line. The Israelis have the high ground in the Golan Heights. You need 1,000 tanks to get through there. How did I know that they were going to actually use 1,000 tanks, the Syrians, or 800 tanks actually? Well, events were to prove me wrong. I didn't know how effective SAM-6 air defense systems were going to prove to be. The huge scale of the Egyptian attack and the novel use of high pressure water cannons to breach the 60-foot-high sand barrier of the Bar-Lev line, and which, on a side note, I can tell you that sand barriers do make a nice a way of containing prisoners of war with concertina. I can attest to that from Desert Storm. The Syrian attack in the Golan Heights was also huge, involving 28,000 soldiers, Syrian soldiers, 800 tanks and 600 artillery pieces, not to mention the Syrian Air Force. Well, 5 years ago, like I said, when I was touring the Golan Heights, I couldn't even believe that you can fight a tank battle there. But when you see these red triangular landmine warning signs, well, you're reliving your soldier experience. That's all I got to say about it. Telling my wife, we don't want to walk there. But in short, it was not an area where I would have expected a major tank battle. The lessons learned from the Yom Kippur War are still applicable. To me, several takeaways from this are guarding against bias when you are considering your enemy, and having ate lunch with the Egyptian army, about a battalion of them one day. I said to myself, this has got to be the most undisciplined group of soldiers I've ever met. So I could see where the Israelis wouldn't have taken, wouldn't have thought that the Egyptians were that formidable an enemy at that time. I mean, that's how I felt about them during Desert Storm. So from a strategic point of view, war is politics, and Anwar Sadat, he had a political endgame in mind when he started that offensive. So that's something I took away from this war, that we have to consider. What is the political reason for this? we have to consider post-war diplomacy too. Had Israel, once it rallied and came back and had the Egypt's Third Army of about 22,000 soldiers surrounded, if it had destroyed that Third Army, that could have led to a conflict between the United States and Russia, and the loss of future diplomacy, as Egypt would have lost any national dignity it regained from the Suez Canal crossing from several days before. Well, let's now hear from the veteran officers of the Israeli Defense Forces that fought this war and helped to save Israel. And from the Jewish people's point of view, definitely helped to save at least half of the Jewish people. Thank you.
Yes, I need it.
You're muted, Eric.
I have to unmute myself. Thank you very much. All of our speakers. I'd like to introduce Lieutenant Colonel Haim Danon now. Haim Danon. He was a Israeli Defense Force Major, Tank Battalion 679th Tank Brigade. And he will tell us about the battle in the Central Sector. Ready for the microphone, sir?
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the privilege given to me to talk to you. I really feel honored to do that. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, General Swan, that we met 2 years ago in the Golan.
Yes, we did. I'm good to see you again.
Yes, good. So my memory still works. Can I put my presentation on? Can you allow that to me, please?
Yes.
Haim,
Yes.
are you going to present your presentation? Or
Yes.
do you? Okay,
I need the code, please. Yes.
perfect.
That,
There you go.
yeah, okay.
Yep. We can see your slides.
It looks
Okay.
great.
Good, it moves. Okay, I graduated the military school in Haifa, in the Reali School in 1964. Here is me as a youngster, 18 years old, together with the Rabin, who used to be our chief of staff and prime minister. I feel honored to be in this picture with him, and all the others are my classmates. When we finished the school, we did a very short career to be officers in the army. Within 9 months, we were officers, and I was privileged also to be chosen by the Armor Corps to be sent to England to study on the new built Chieftain, the British tank. We were asked by the British to help them to develop the tank, and so we did. We landed on the tank in England, and we bought it in Israel. We did 4 years of experiments, and we made 150 changes to the tank. We also increased the amount of rounds from 48 to 72. And as a result of politics, the British decided not to sell the tanks to us because there was a lot of pressure from the Arab countries. And at the end of the day, they didn't sell us a tank. And then I was informed by the chief of the Armored Corps, then General Tal, that within 5 years we will have our own tank because of that. And today the Merkava is the Armored Corps is equipped with the Merkava 4, which is one of the best tanks in the world, and very well-developed technology wise and other things. I'm just mentioning that because you will see the tanks in a minute that we used during the war. 679 Brigade was founded in 1970 due to the necessity to have one of one more brigade for the Golan Heights. Yeah, we had some training from 70 to 73. These were the first battalion commanders. Two of them were from my class, classmates, and they also become during the war. They became battalion commanders. There's also Abigail Kalani, the hero of Israel. I was the second of command to him in the reserve. They were in the regular army. We did training in the south, in the Negev, and the training was for the Egyptian, let's say for the Egyptian battle. The brigade still exists today, equipped with Merkava Mark III and positioned in the Golan Heights. The Israeli tank that took part is the Petrol Centurion, was very old tanks from the British, and we were on that period of time we were changing to the new Centurion with the diesel Continental engine. So we changed all the power terrain of the tank, and it became a Shotkal. Shotkal is the name of the new Centurion. Our brigade was equipped with the old ones. The other reserve brigade was equipped already with the new tanks. This is important to mention because the old Centurion was really a terrible tank with a lot of problems, technical problems. So 50% of the war is how to make it work. 3 months before the Yom Kippur War, the Northern Command, Yitzhak Hofi, took a decision, and a vital decision really, that saves Israel, to move the two reserves brigade, 679 and 179, to the newly built camp in Filon and Iftach, which is near a little, it's let's say 20 minutes north of the Sea of Galilee. Here is the Sea of Galilee, and this is the new camp, and this is the Bay of Haifa. In the north, by the way, Lebanon is here, and this is the Golan Heights, and this is the Jordan going to the Jordan River, goes into the Sea of Galilee. And the importance of that the movement of the brigades to close to the bridges of the Golan saved us 10 hours of drive. Once we have let's say, if we would have stayed in the same camps, let's say camps, we would have lost the war, because the Syrian would have really reached the Jordan River, and everything was open here. The background of the war, usually the media used to say, it was a surprise war, and everybody was surprised. And as a matter of fact, we were not surprised, because we had all the information. Even 2 weeks before the war, the king of Hussein informed the Israeli Prime Minister, our Golda Meir, about the intention of the Syrians and the Egyptians to attack Israel. So we knew that they are planning to attack Israel. So all that information we had in hand. And before the war, this just to give you an illustration of the Israel a little. This is the Israeli map, the blue and the red here. The blue, and this is Sinai. Sinai is 3 times bigger than Israel, by the way. And you see the tiny Golan Heights with, let's say it's like, let's say Manhattan. If I will go to that, and this is the West Bank. Here you see the Dead Sea, and the Sea of Galilee is here. And this is the Negev. About 2/3 of Israel is the Negev, is desert, and all the population is really around Tel Aviv here, Haifa, and Ashdod. I'm sorry it's not in English, but I will try to explain. So in the preparation before the war, Brigade 7, one of our regular brigades, was moved to the Golan 1 week before the war, to the Golan, to enforce the forces in the Golan. In the Golan, we had only 2 battalions, and they come with 3 battalions to enforce the Golan. Okay, and in the front, you have to understand that they were prepared only for a battle, what they call a day battle or something. They didn't know that the forces in the field, they didn't know that a war is coming. Although, let's say the politicians and the chief of staff, they knew that a war is coming, and in spite of the request of the chief of staff to recruit the reserve army, the politicians, Golda and our Minister of Defense, Danon, didn't allow that, and you will understand in a minute why. On Friday, the 5th of October, an highest alert has been declared in the army. Vacations were canceled, and recruitment centers have been prepared. I have to explain that. You have to know that 75% of the IDF force is in the reserve army. And now it works. The regular army is a small army, represents something like 25% of the whole forces. An Israeli guy, when he reaches 18 years old, has to go to the army for 3 years, girls for 2 years. And after he releases the army, if he doesn't stay, permanently in the army, he is joining reserve forces. If he's in the armor, he's joining a force, building a force like in our brigade. We build the forces from the newly released soldiers from Brigade 7 and Brigade 188 from the regular army. The Air Force was ready for preemptive attack in the morning of Yom Kippur War. And the decision was taken by the Prime Minister and Minister of Defense to cancel the preemptive attack in order to prevent upsetting the US and not to be seen as the ones who started the war. This is very important note to understand why the politician didn't allow to recruit the reserve army. Of course, the picture would have been much different. Okay, the Navy has been fully prepared and is heading to the open sea. And the reserve army, the main force and the strength of IDF was not recruited, as I said before. And I was in the reserve army. I lived in 1970. And in October 1973, I was living in Tel Aviv. At 2 o'clock, I was at home. And Yom Kippur in Israel, you have to know, if you know, everything is frozen, no cars are moving, no media, no radio, no television, nothing is working. Everybody stays home or goes to the synagogues. I was at home and I saw quite let's say, strange movements of army cars in the streets. And 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we had the alarm, the emergency alarm that calls everybody to go to shelters. When I heard the alarm, I started to look at the media if there is any message, any announcement. And I looked at the radio, I looked at the television, but I heard in the BBC informed at 2 o'clock that a war started in Israel. The forces in the Golan Heights, when they took, let's say, their position at 2 o'clock, they didn't know that they are going for a war. So this is important. What I did, if I give you my experience, those time, 1973, ladies and gentlemen, we didn't have a telephone in every house in Israel. We didn't have the iPhones I had to wait for 7 years to get a telephone line, and I moved 3 houses until then. But never mind, just to illustrate to you the situation. So what I did, I took my car, I drove to my parents' house, which was 5-10 minutes away. Everybody were in the shelters. I went up to the 4th floor and I called my unit. And they said, please come. And I went back home. They put on myself the army uniform. I collected another friend of mine from the brigade, and I drove like a hell to the Golan Heights, to our new camp that the tanks were moved there 3 months before. I arrived quarter to four. I arrived to our camp, the emergency storage camp, where our tanks were there, located. And you have to know also that differently from today, all the equipment of the tank was in the storage. The ammunition was in another camp. You have to bring it with lorries, and the guns were also in another storage. And you have to collect all this, in the camp. And also to tell you that the camp was not ready to receive us because there was no light. There was already also tunnels were open, the pipe tunnels and the electricity were open in the camp, and we have to put to light on with the command cars and other lorries to put lights on in order to see what we are doing. But when you are talking about tanks and you have to furnish and equip the tank with the ammunition, so it takes to the crew, 4 members of the crew, commander, loader, a gunner and the driver, it takes you 4 to 6 hours to prepare the tank. You have to understand. Today, all the emergency stores is ready that within 15 minutes you can move. Then the reserve was prepared. I mean, the reserve was should have been, let's say, prepared within 24 hours. The surprise was that we were ready before 24 hours. That's really what surprised the Syrians, because we met them after 12 and 14 hours. It was a long story to explain the reserve. Okay, the power of balance at 2 o'clock on Saturday, Yom Kippur, 6th of October, was 177 tanks from the regular army, Brigade 7 and Brigade 188, against 1,400 Syrian tanks attacked the Golan. We had only 44 artillery barrels against 1,100 artillery barrels surrounding the Golan. This is not so important. But what is important here is to see that a newcomer arrived to our scene, was the T-62, a new tank with 150 millimeter barrel. We had 105, and the T-55 was an old tank, let's say not better than the Centurion, but like the Centurion more or less. But this was really a better tank. For us to penetrate this tank, we should come less than 2,000 meters in order to penetrate that tank. Okay, just to give you the illustration to show you, the Golan Heights is 70 kilometers length and 25 width. And if you take if you think, for example, in Manhattan, you go from Battery Park to the Peekskill, I measured that it's about 50 miles, about 75 kilometers. To give you a proportion of the battle scene, 70 kilometers, only 25 widths. In order to go to the ground, you have to pass two bridges, two main bridges, Ark Bridge and Daughters of Jacob Bridge. Let's call it the bridge. This is the main bridge where we cross in order to climb up the Golan. What we have to know that the central roads from the southeast to northwest crossing the Golan Heights was used as a central road, was the pipeline. Now the pipeline, just for your let's say,
Pipeline.
the pipeline, which called also the Trans-Arabian pipeline, was built by the three American oil companies, Esso, Chevron, and Texaco. And they built it in 100 years ago in the 1920, and I think it started to operate in 1925. It was a huge project to draw, I mean, to take the oil from the Persian Gulf, from Koisema in the Saudi Arabia to Lebanon, in Sidon. Lebanon is 1,214 kilometers pipeline. It's really impressive project for that time. You have to remember that at that time, the British controlled Israel, Egypt, and the rest of the Middle East. Okay, you have to know also that you see the yellow lines is the roads that you can go and climb the Golan. The Golan is full of mountains, and you have to use these roads in order to climb up. Once you, this is the Bnot Yaakov, the Daughters of Jacob bridge, and this is Eric, I mentioned, this is the Jordan River going into the Sea of Galilee, and this is Nafach. So it's in Hebrew, and this is Konetra. Konetra was the headquarters of the Syrians in 1967, but it was under our control from 1967 to 73 until today. So if you go from this road from Nafach was the headquarters of the Golan forces, and you see there is a junction here. If you go north, you go south, you go west, and you go east, and it's 10 minutes drive for a tank from the Nafach headquarters to the bridge. That to show you the strategic point of Nafach, because the Syrians wanted to reach Nafach in order to threaten Brigade 7, was here in the north. And also, in a minute, you understand the size of the battlefield and the number of tanks we have on this side. Okay, so this is Konetra, Paris Mountain. It's in the south of the Golan. Again, it's the bridges, Arik and the Daughters of Jacob. The attack plans of the Syrians and the Egyptian army was based on full surprise. That we know. And we were attacked by divisions. This is the division number. This is in Hebrew, but Division 5, 9, 7, Commando to the Hermon Mountain, and Division 1 with T-62 tanks. You have to understand also that the main attack, the main efforts was in the south part of the Golan. Okay, again, you see here the river and the bridges. Because this is a film in Hebrew, so I will skip that. The reserve forces arrived to their camp, were grouped according to arrival. That means that, I didn't explain that, but then to recruit the reserve, you have to send messengers. It was not SMS, no mail, no WhatsApp. You have to send a messenger with a warrant to the house. And we had an organization of messengers that were called, they should have telephone, of course, and they were called and they were sent to the houses of the soldiers in order to give them the warrant and ask them to arrive to the point that they gathered there, and from there to be moved by buses to their brigade. So they arrived slowly during the evening. So when we received a driver, a gunner and loader and a commander, we grouped them together, even if they didn't know each other, because they didn't even train themselves together. In the training we had before, we knew our crews, but here, because of the emergency, we had to group them differently according to the arrival. And I have to say that when I arrived to the camp at 4 o'clock, around 3:45 to 4 o'clock, we had a command car open with the communication open on the line of Brigade 188. And we heard in the communication the emergency, and they cried for support. They cried for ammunition. Around 5, 6 o'clock, I heard my friend order there is a battalion commander of a battalion 53 in Brigade 188 in the south of Golan asking for support. So we understood the emergency, and the reserve forces arrived to the camps and grouped according to arrival, as we said before, and unorganized crews, not necessarily knowing each other. And this is really very important to understand that once you get on the tank and you don't know who is your gunner, you don't know what is his experience, you don't know, it's really, let's say, influence the let's say performance of the crew. Most of the tanks they left the camps without coordinating the telescope with the gun. Once you are arranging a new tank, you have to bring together to the one point the central of the barrel and the course of the telescopic, the gunner telescope, and most of them didn't do that. And also the tanks were not fully equipped with the ammunition. Sorry. Okay. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, PM, the war started in the Golan Heights and in Sinai, and 1,400 tanks, this is number of tanks that attacked the Golan Heights. Now, the regular army that were prepared, let's say 1 week and let's say a few days also before the war started, Brigade 7, remember, was moved from Sinai to the Golan, were equipped with 110 tanks. By the way, this is the number of tanks in the usual number of tanks in the brigade then. And Brigade 188 was only with 67 tanks. Now, the 67 tanks were against 800 tanks, 810. The 110 tanks in the north was against, let's say, 300 tanks. More importantly, you have to see that the south part of the Golan, let's say the line of from the bridge to the Konetra here, and Nafach is in the middle here, it's, let's say, departing the north part and the south part. And you see that the south part had to defend 35 kilometers with 67 tanks. In the north, they had to defend 110 tanks and defend 17 kilometers. And it's very it's easier to defend the northern side. It's more closure, closed areas than in the south was open area. So the Syrians can really penetrate with every side. And that's why the Syrians had a success in the south in the evening of the first day, penetrating in the Golan from the south part of Israel. Okay, I just illustrate you the map. It's in Hebrew, but here is Nafach. Here is Nafach, the headquarters of the Golan Heights. Okay, and this is the main road that takes you from the bridge to Konetra here. And this is a kibbutz, El Zivan. This is still, it's a mountain Shipon and Yosifon, Sindiana. I will mention that because all this is our battlefield. So you have seen the movement. I'll do it maybe, okay, well, I can do that now, sorry. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, I moved quickly. So now you can see the movement of our brigade from the emergency storage camp to the Golan. 25 tanks headed by Orior, our brigade, newly also appointed a brigade commander. Was, by the way, he was a general in the army later on. He was a newcomer, and with 25 tanks, he left the camp. And according to his instruction, was to take positions south of Konetra. It was a kind of a valley here that nobody was here, and the Brigade 7 were from Konetra north, from here to north, and nobody was here. But the main war was here on the pipeline. This is the pipeline, by the way, crossing the Nafach camp, goes down near Tel Fares, in the south of Fares Mountain, in the south of the Golan. Okay? So he was stationed here until the midday, and then at the 3rd Brigade, Orior moved with 2 brigade commanders. I was second in command of one of the brigade commanders, Farel. I was stayed in the camp in order to prepare and push all the tanks to go as quick as possible to join the forces in the Golan. And the 3rd commander, a battalion commander, this is Ben Shoam. Ben Shoam was the brigade commander of 188. He was fighting here on the pipeline, because the main force of the Syrians came from the pipeline. And the Syrians were attacking Nafach Junction, and they arrived Nafach. And they also tried to cross the main road here from Nafach to Konetra here. And by the way, this is something like 5-7 kilometers. The range, the distance, 7 kilometers. That's all. And the next, the division commander full order the regiment commander Gan Gottfried, not to join to Orior, but to move into the pipeline, because the main war was in the pipeline. But remember that at that time, from 7 o'clock, Orior, the brigade commander, our brigade commander, was stationed here with 25 tanks. And all the tanks that joined during the morning, from the morning till 1 o'clock, Raful, the division commander of the Golan then, who was also the chief of staff later. He stopped here all the forces and asked them and ordered them to fight and to go and meet the Syrians that were coming here from south on the pipeline to help Ben Shoam, the brigade, 188 brigade. At noon, the Syrians crossed the main road to Quneitra, and they were threatening, threatening the Brigade 7, back. So once they could, they continue, they really could collapse all the Golan defense. So Oriol received an order at noon, let's say whether it was 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock, something like that, to launch an attack with the two regiments, the two battalions he had, 25 tanks, to the Nafar, because the Syrians were in Nafar then. Together with the attack of the brigade from the east, you see myself, I joined the battle. I left the camp, let's say at noon, around 12 o'clock, with the rest of the tanks of our battalion, let's say something like five tanks, and other half tracks with the other forces and the first aid forces. And I crossed the Rosh Pina town. Children were waving to us, coming back from the school. On the right side, I could see the Golan, all the smoke in the Golan, and you can hear the bombs. I reached not Yaakov, the daughters of Jacob, bridge to cross the Jordan, and I have been surprised to see that the bridge is prepared for explosion by our engineers corps. So I joined the war, and what I want to show you what happened here for, let's say, in the morning and the afternoon, that for the Syrians, we did the attack. We attacked them first from east. So we really break the attack of the Syrians, the T-62. By the way, Brigade 1 from the Division 1 of the Syrians with 262 made really a significant move from Knacker camps near Damascus. All the night they move and they penetrate through the south of the Golan and reach at noon to Nafach. So we attacked from their side the T-62 here, and they saw the Syrian division. So they saw an attack from the east. They saw the attack of all the tanks that came from our brigade from north, and they saw me also attacking Nafach from west. Now, as far as I'm concerned, when I crossed the bridge and went to what we call the custom house, the Syrian old custom house, it was something like 1 kilometer from the bridge. I met the second of the commander of the division, and he said to me, run quickly to Nafach because the Syrians are in Nafach. This is what I heard from him, and this is the only information I had. When I was climbing and driving on the road to Nafach from here and reaching Nafach, I saw convoys of AFTRACs and soldiers leaving. I know that they left the Nafach, the headquarters, and left towards the bridges to cross back to Israel. And what is left in the Golan, only tanks with no infantry at all. So when I reach the pipeline, before I reach the pipeline, let's say 1,500 before, I saw from their side the Syrians coming into the camp, and I started to to destroy some tanks and coming closer to the pipeline. And when I reached the pipeline, I saw a turnover tank on its side, and a soldier, strange enough, holding a yellow flag. And yellow flag in the armor corps then was a sign for a damaged tank. But you have to remember, this were really a regular army, the regular army soldiers, very well disciplined, and to hold the flag like that, and around 500 meters around, Syrians are trying to get the right. It's very strange. But I stopped near them and asked them what is going on, and they told me that the brigade commander Ben Shoam, Colonel Ben Shoam, and his operation commander Benny Katzin, who was my friend, are killed in the tank. From that time, this was around exactly 2:22. Ben Shoam, he was killed. His operation officer and also his deputy. So we say that Brigade 188, let's say from 230, was not exist anymore. So we took the control of the center part. I mean, we, the Brigade 679, took the control of the center part of the Golan towards the south, and we started to push the Syrians back to the south. Also need to mention that Ben Shor was my battalion commander when I was in the army in 1967. I joined the Brigade 7 as a company commander, and I was stationed here in the United Nation camp near Konetra. I was stationed here. The headquarters of my brigade was here in Nafach, and Bishop was the battalion commander. And of course, we knew the Golan. Ben Shoam, the battalion commander, was also in my wedding. I had my marriage in December 1967 after the 6-day war, and we moved from Sinai to the Golan. Brigade 7 moved from Sinai in 1967. Okay,
I have a question. This
yes,
is
please.
I have two questions from the group. Number one, were the tanks ever calibrated before the fighting started? That's the first question. And the second is, how were you getting information from other commanders during the battle? What was your situational awareness of the battle going on around you?
Okay. The first question about the collaboration of the gun, most of the time they didn't do it because you have to do it on a daylight, and some of the tanks left already, during the night or in the morning, and they didn't have time. Even the tanks that left in the morning didn't have time to stop. Some of them did. In time was stop and to do the collaboration. And the second question about the information, I will talk about that in a minute, because as far as I'm concerned, I didn't have, except the meeting I had with the second of the command of the division in the custom house. I didn't have any other information. I didn't have even communication with my brigade commander. And when I came closer to Nafech, I didn't wait for orders for everybody. When I saw the tanks, I immediately started to shoot, and I moved forward to the pipeline. So all this three-side attack, I think, influenced the Syrians to move back and withdraw from Nafach back to the south of Golan. By the way, this is the memorial of Ben Shoam and Benny Katzin, operation officer, and the brigade commander, which I knew personally, very sad story. And this is the place where the tank was they were damaged. Now during the afternoon, the fighting, I saw a line of 14 tanks driving like a hell towards me on the pipeline. And this were a shot call. I mean, the newly shot call, I knew that they are from Reserve Brigade 179, and they left the battlefield towards Nafach. They lost their company commander, whom I knew, who was also my under my command during the commander's training school, and Ijo. And the 14 tanks, I stopped them and I asked them, what are you doing? And they said, we lost the company. I saw that they are lost. So I took them under my command and say, you are moving and you are under my command from now on. And on that night, I prepared 24 tanks, a new brigade, a new battalion, which consists of 24 tanks, 14 from 179, and the rest from my brigade. And we were organized here near Nafach the night. And you have to understand that some of the force, some of the commanders I didn't know. I gathered all the commanders together on that night, and I looked at their faces, and I nominated the people I knew, company commanders, the platoon commanders, and set them and say, this is your tanks, prepare the tanks. And my first mission was to defend the road going down to Daughters of Jacob, Jacob Bridge. So we spread ourselves here, you know, from both sides of the road, waiting for the Syrians to attack us at night. And you have to remember that the first night on Saturday night, they fought all the night. But the second night, we were really lucky, and they didn't attack us. And we didn't have any infrared instruments and so on. The Syrians did. Okay, the night we were sitting, you know, over here we lost most of our commanders. Three battalion commanders two were let's say wounded. One was his tank was destroyed. He lost his driver, and he went by foot and joined the forces at night. So we started to build new battalions. So Amnon Rimon was taking, he was second in command. He taking one battalion. I took the second command, and the third was Ariel command, Ariel, the battalion brigade. Okay. That's to show you the first aid in the custom house, which was a few kilometers from Nafach road. Not a nice pictures. Okay, the second day after a night sitting in the tanks, you know, in a very high alert. The Syrians didn't attack, but in the morning we took our positions here in front of Nafach, and while we took the positions, Ariel on my left, I was in the center, and Amnon Rimon was on my right. While we took the positions, it was just in the morning. We saw in front of us the Syrians are really running towards us. The Syrians, we found them, and we started to find them, you know, from 400 meters. You know, the tank battle usually is between 2 kilometers to 4 kilometers. And here we found them 400 meters from us. And they made an assault on us, and we reached the ranges of 100 meters, 50 meters, 0. They even bypassed us on the right. Amnon Rimon was killed in that morning, and you see here, and we succeeded to withdraw the Syrian back to this area, Ramtania, on that day. I have to say to you that this was one of the really the difficult days of this war, apart from the Nafach war. But this time, the Syrians tried to get again to Nafach, the strategic point that really control the junction of the Golan Heights.
Haim?
We have launched in the afternoon. We have launched the attack towards the Syrians, and on that evening, when I started to climb Ramtania, which is the strategic point controlling all the south area of the Golan, I found myself alone with my tank in the saddle of Ramtania. There is a village and also a mountain in the saddle, and in front of me were the Syrians tank, 800 meters range. I started to shoot at them, and they shot back. I think I destroyed between 8 to 10 tanks in a really fast shooting, and I was also hit by a Syrian tank between the turret and the undercarriage. My loader was wounded. Half of his back was lost. We had to take him out of the tank, to evacuate him out of the tank, to carry him on our backs, to go along the village. And I was really lucky that I have seen RL, the other battalion commanders, starting to move back because they finished their ammunition, and also they were short in the fuel. And he came back and took me with the wounded soldier. And again, at the same night, we had to organize our forces again. This is my tank that was eaten here in the saddle of Ramtania. And how do I have my this picture? Is because 2 weeks after the war, when we were in Syria already, I asked my reconnaissance that they brought the convoy of supplies to go to my tank and try to find my sunglasses. They didn't find my sunglasses. They brought me the picture. So that's why I have this picture.
Hey, Haim, could you have a look at the time? Okay.
I'm enjoying it. Don't know, but
No, it's fantastic. It's really fantastic. I just want to make sure that we're squared away on our time.
okay,
Yeah.
I will do it next week. Okay, the third day, the night of the, let's say the third day on the 8th of October, we were preparing an ambush. We at night took our position here in Indiana and near Shipon with 2 brigades only, RL and me. And in the morning, we started to see the Syrians coming from Ramtania towards us, and we stopped them already here in Ramtania, 2 kilometers, 2 kilometers from us. During the day, we had a lot of artillery on us, a lot of missiles, anti-tank missiles, the Sager, and the Syrians tried to land behind our forces with 4 commando helicopters, where they were destroyed by our reconnaissance units in our back. And in the afternoon, we launched an attack. I'm doing quickly an attack. And when we started to launch an attack, RL was hit again. He was wounded, and he evacuated himself, and I was left alone here in against Ramtania, something like 800 meters from Ramtania, in a down part of Ramtania. Ramtania was a hill, and they were really controlling from the heights. We had artillery on us, and the missiles from our left, all the time causing our tanks. They did some damages to us also. And this is one of the critical points of this battle, because I was here alone. I was supposed to get support from newly formed forces, and I didn't receive that. And the commander, the brigade commander, decided to make an attack without any support. So we launched an attack face to face to the Syrians. I looked right and left to my commanders, and I saw their body language. They were really frightened. And I took a decision then, a vital decision, to give the command to my driver in the outside communication. So every tank in my battalion heard my order. I said, a driver advance. And when I say driver advance, and I started to move, everybody started to move together with me in one line. And you have to know, we had to go there over the basalt rocks. And while we get close to Ramtania, we destroy the tanks who were in Ramtania within the ranges of 100 meters, 50 meters, and zero. I found myself, because of the smoke and the fires and the fires around, I found myself crossing, shooting a Syrian from my right, and I couldn't aim my gun to this tank. I asked one of my commanders to shoot at them, and that's what happened. And on that night, when we sit here in the, I must say that this attack was really something that gave us a good mood. We were in a very good mood after 3 difficult days that we really achieved something. We took back Ramtania, and on that night, most of the Syrians left the Golan Heights. We had a battle in the morning of Wednesday. We had to take care of the commando sitting here on our side, shooting at us the missiles, and let's say at 10 o'clock in the morning, there was no one Syrian in the Golan Heights. I will do it quick. I know.
Yeah,
5 minutes.
We got 2 minutes left.
Okay.
Maximum.
This is the the consultation we made before the attack to Syria. This is me, but the brigade, ORO, RL, and so on. Okay, this is me and ORO and the second of command of our brigade. Now, the attack took the counterattack was taken by 3 divisions. But when you say 3 divisions, it's not really 3 divisions. It's maybe two brigades in every division, but it was 50% of the forces. You have to understand that while our standard is 110 tanks in the division, we were left every day not more than 50, 60 tanks. So 50% of our forces. So the plan was to attack with 2 divisions, our division and a tank division and pellet division to stay in the back, the Golan Heights. And just to illustrate you the map here, this is the place where we started the penetration here. This is near Konetra, and this is the main road to Damascus. From here, it's 60 kilometers to Damascus. This is Han Arnabe position, very good position in 1 meter of concrete with anti-tanks missiles, with tanks between the positions, and one main road taking us to Han Arnabe. And you have to move on the road only on one line, because on the right side or left side there were minefields. So the attack took place at 1 in the afternoon of Thursday, and the first brigade that took the attack was 179, but they didn't reach Khan Arnabe and they move back. While they move back, we enter in. So you can imagine on one road, one convoy with wounded and damaged tank going back on the same road, and we are coming in, shooting like a hell on the left-hand side. On the way, I saw that Ori Or, our brigade commander, was his half track from where he was commanding the brigade. He was hit, and he's a driver and a communication officer was killed. He was lying on the sidewalk. I saw him hardly in the, you know, amidst the smoke. I stopped. I took him on my tank, and we continued the attack. We crossed Khan Arnabe on that night. RL was wounded again when he turned left. Ben David, one of our commander corps forces, also was killed here. Not also, but he was killed. And we, just to show you from the back, this is the way to Damascus from Konetra, to illustrate you some of the pictures. We don't have many pictures, but just to give you an idea. Okay, on that night, we took our position here near after Khan Arnabe. And by the way, this is Sha'ar Mountain, a big mountain here, Sha'ar Mountain. We took positions here. The ammunition couldn't come to us. And in the morning, we found ourselves, we hardly had the ammunition, small amount of ammunition. And we received in the morning an attack from the Syrian plane fighters, and they threw on us bombs of 250 kilograms, and we decided to move forward. On that morning, we received newly founded forces, Nati, under Nati Golan with 20 tanks. The forces was built from people who came back from abroad. In Israel, this is one of the beautiful thing, you know, about the Israelis, that when there is a emergency in Israel, whether you are a student or traveling abroad, everybody is crowding, you know, on the plane to go back to Israel to join their units. So that's how.
Hey, Haim.
Yes.
We need to wrap it up and move on to the artillery battle, or our time might run out.
There are 2 minutes. 2 minutes, I'll wrap it up.
2 minutes over 4 minutes ago.
4 minutes, thank you. When we made our assault, we didn't know where is the enemy, and we went towards Korin Mountain, and in front of me, the newly comers, they lead the brigade, and they went into ambush, and I saw their tanks starting to burn out and damage, and everybody was spread around, and Orior ordered me to go forward and to lead the brigade, and that's what I did. But I decided, because I looked around, I didn't see the Syrians here. I took the decision to take a view from the only mountain around, and I climbed up with 2 tanks. And when we climbed up, we saw in all this area hundreds of tanks and armored trucks of the Syrians. And we sat here with 2 tanks starting to shoot at them. And they started like an order to move back, to turn towards Damascus and run away. We left without ammunition. Then we have to finish our tanks with ammunition at noon. And while we were filling the tanks with ammunition, the Iraqis came towards us from Syria, from east, we left everything and we destroyed something like 35, 40 tanks here, Iraqi tanks within 10 minutes without giving them any chance to shoot one round. The next day, we had to fight against the Jordanian, and I will finish with that because I want to finish with that. The Jordanian came from the south to help. They came with 80 tanks. They left 30 destroyed tanks in the Golan. They came back with 50 tanks, and I had the privilege to meet the brigade commander in Afar 18 years ago to exchange views of this war, and I will finish with that. We stayed 7 months as a reserve in the Golanite, and we had let's say an attrition war for 7 months with the Syrians. We have to move from one position to another, and this brought us to 35 kilometers from Damascus, and so on. That's it, very quick, and sorry for the time. And thank you really for your...
Haim, that was a fascinating account, and we really appreciate you sharing that with us. And we can follow up afterward, you know, later on towards the end, we can follow up with some Q&A. I would like to move on to Brigadier General Avraham Bar David, and I had the chance to meet him.
Eric, can you ask Haim to stop sharing his screen, please?
Okay, Haim, could you please stop sharing the screen? Turn off your screen share.
Out 1 minute.
Yep. Okay, good. So I had the pleasure to meet Brigadier General retired Avraham Bar David in Tel Aviv in 2018. And he told me some really amazing stories about the artillery battle, but I'm going to turn over the microphone to him now and let you take over.
Okay. First of all, I would like to good morning to all of you. And I am honored and pleased to have the opportunity to try to explain to you how we operated artillery on the Northern Command in the Yom Kippur War. Just to clarify, I was before that in the War of Attrition, I was the battalion commander, the only regular battalion commander of artillery in the Northern Command. And then I left and I went for 1 year to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, to join the advanced course of artillery commanders. And I came back to Israel just 1 month before the war. I was requested to go to be the commander of the artillery in the Northern Command, which I didn't like for it, since I was just a lieutenant colonel, and my subordinates, the division artillery commanders, were all of them full colonels. So in an irregular army, it's not so easy to be a lieutenant colonel and trying to order full colonels. But with all the restriction, by the end of the war we made. What I'm trying to tell you is that there's tremendous changes that happened in the artillery corps in Israel between 67 and 73. In 67, we found ourselves that we have guns and weapons which are in very short ranges, while the enemy does have very long ranges. So actually, we are under fire most of the time. The decision during the 67 war, we captured a lot of ammunition and guns from the Syrians and from the Egyptians we actually had more equipment than we had before we started the 67 war. So the major decision was to replace some of our guns with captured guns. We had plenty of ammunition. We could afford it. Actually, I think that we had more ammunition captured than ammunition that we regularly using, preparing ourselves for the war. And what actually happened over there? I'm trying to show you how some of the guns that we replaced ours. The one that you are seeing right now is actually the 122 artillery, what is called the M38, the Russian one. It does have a better range. It does have a better round, and it does have a better rate of fire comparing to the 25 pounder that we had before that. So we had to replace them. Another one that which one more. Okay, that's the typical gun that the Russian was using during the Second World War, the M38, and that's the one that most of our 25 pounders were replaced between 67 and 73 with this particular gun. Then since we were not able to buy any additional gun from the West, neither from the United States, we took the old chassis of the Sherman tanks, took off the turret and moved the engine from the back to the front, and by that we took towed weapons, which are actually towed weapons that we bought from the France made. M50 tank is called, and those guns were replaced on the chassis of the M1 on the Sherman chassis, and that actually gave us the opportunity to have some guns which do have the ranges of up to 17 kilometers. The next one that we tried to understand, that's a towed weapon that actually it's difficult to operate it, but that was the only way that we can get any self-propelled weapons. More than that, that it does have limited elevation, deflection from each side, but you have the elevation, the proper elevation, so you can reach the maximum range. Another thing that happened significantly, and that had an impact on what we did, is just 2 years before the wars, finally the United States decided to sell us 2 battalions of 105 M109, but with a short range of 14 kilometers only, and that was, one of them was in the northern command and one of the southern command. So actually we could get in the place only one. And the second one that we changed, we got two battalions of M107 with the 175 millimeter. That was finally we had a long range gun with a 32 kilometers range, but we were forced to buy that with the 8-inch as well. And the 8-inch altogether is 14 kilometers. We didn't need the 8-inch, but we didn't have any other choice. So every gun that we got with the barrel of the 8-inch to be replaced whenever it's necessary. Another part of our artillery was, the major part of the artillery was the 120 millimeter. Normally that's Israeli made. And by the way, is the 120 millimeter that's now in use in the United States Army, and that it was a towed weapon. We mounted it on the APCs, Second World War APCs, and it was a self-propelled weapon. In each brigade was at least one battalion of artillery that was equipped with the 120 millimeter mortar, the mortar and the ammunition made in the Israeli industries. The other one that I would like to show you, between the 67 and 74, we developed another weapon, and again we we had the opportunity to develop mortars. So we developed the 160 millimeter mortar, which is a heavy mortar. Again, short range, just 9.5 kilometers, but it was mounted again on the chassis of the Sherman chassis, and that was already replacing the engine to the front and all that stuff. And the engine is the diesel engine. So that was our way to define what are the results from the 67 war and how to be ready for the next one, making the major part of the artillery as self-propelled artillery. That's typical, the way that while on the move it's closed and the barrel is down, and then when you open it you can reach it. Now the round of that particular mortar is a heavy, very efficient round. Actually, the efficiency of the round is about 4 times as much as the 155. Besides that, we try to develop our own 155. And 155, we developed the gun itself. It's a 33 caliber gun, so it does have already a range of 20 kilometers. And again, built on the same chassis by the Israeli defense industry altogether. And it was the only one that had, from our part, beside the 155 that we got originally from France, those are the only one that they have long ranges. But that's the way that it's losing while traveling. And just to understand the Golan Heights that we have seen just before, from Migdal Shams, that is the closest point to Damascus, the range to Damascus is about 55 kilometers. So that's actually the area that we were firing at. We were fighting it during the 73 war. That was captured in 67 and fighting it during the 73 war. Now, beside that, we from the 67 war were able to capture two type of weapons, rocket weapons, which we didn't have before. And normally that was not the only army in the West that had rockets. It was the German army. And we decided to try to operate them and to find out how we can use them or what should be done in the future in this particular field. So we had the 122 millimeter that was with the range of 20 kilometers with not enough ammunition. So we used it in the war of attrition, but later on we just drop it out. And we got the 240 millimeter. It's a huge weapon, again, with the small range of about 9.5. And those two rocket system developed the concept how to operate rocket system in the battle. For the 240 millimeter, we didn't have enough ammunition, so we requested the Israeli military industry to build up rockets which they never did before for the 240 millimeters, and that saved quite a lot in I would say in our attack in the Golan Heights after the Syrians withdrew from our part. To understand what was the order of battle or what the enemy was using during that, they had 3 types of 122 millimeter guns. All of them, I would say, towed. But the minimum, the shortest one was the 12 kilometer range, and the longest was the 20 kilometer range. They had 130 millimeter with the range of 22 kilometers. We again used them, modified the weapon, build ammunition in Israel, and therefore we had 2 battalions that were equipped with that particular weapon. That actually it was a gift that we got from the Syrians in the 67 war. And they had additional one, the 180 millimeter, that was actually built by the Russian to exceed the range of the 175. And that one has a range of 45 kilometers. And that one finally we captured in the 73 war. But before that, we didn't have it. We knew that it's existing. We didn't have anything to hit it or at least to confront such a long range. In the artillery division in Israel, there are 60 weapons because there are 5 battalions, which each battalion does have just 12 weapons, 4 per mortars or guns, doesn't matter, 4 per battery. Not because we are not able to conduct 6-1 like in the normal Western world, but the simple question was we didn't have enough guns, not mortars, not guns, not anything else. And while in the same, we were comparing with the enemy artillery, and I'm talking just on the northern front and Golan Heights, the division artillery in the Syrian army does have about 150 artillery pieces. Now, before the war started, it was just before the Rosh Hashanah and the Yom Kippur, so they decided that we all together will have on the Golan Heights 3 batteries, 2 160 and 1 155, a regular battalion. All the rest are reservists, so better they let us leave them to be at home. So we started 1 week before the war started. We were 12 guns, and that mainly the effort was to provide close fire support, danger close to the strongholds if that is necessary, if that something is happening. And since we suddenly saw in the last 10 days that the Syrians are bringing to the front openly day and night a lot of artillery, and our commanding officer of the Northern Command, Hofi, he went back and forward to the general staff requesting reinforcement. Since they were not allowed to call the reservist, the only way to do it was to bring artillery from the south, from the Egyptian border, and they brought over there a few batteries and few battalions. By the end, before the war started, about 8 hours before that, we were already 11 batteries and 44 guns. And day before the war, and Friday morning, the commander of the Northern Front paid a visit to the artillery, and I joined him. And I told him, look, with all the respect, if something is happening here, and our 44 guns will be very devoted, and each of them will be able to fire and to shut up an artillery battery of the Syrians, there still will remain about 120 artillery batteries that no one is affecting them. And they can fire on the Golan Heights wherever they want and whatever they want. He said, Avraham, that's the only thing that we have. We don't have any other choice. That's it. At the same time, the Syrian had 147 batteries deployed just in front of us, altogether about 1,000 guns. So starting the war with 44 guns versus 1,000, the chances of providing close fire support to the infantry, to the strongholds, to the armor, it's quite limited. In each strongholds, we had between 12 and 15 soldiers. They were reinforced by the 5 regular soldiers just before the war started, because normally they were not more than 10 people, 10 soldiers over there. Most of the strongholds were conducted by sergeants, regular sergeants, guys 20 years old. They are in service already for a year or a year and a half. They were the commanders. All of them were instructed how to adjust artillery fire for the danger close if there is necessary. All of them were in direct line connection, wire and radio, to the unit that was supposed to provide the fire to close fire support to them if the enemy is attacking. Beside that, we had on the Golan Heights long observation post. Normally, we took battalion commanders and put them in those observation posts. So actually, we could control whatever is happening from the border, I would say around the 10, 12 kilometers. The deployment of the artillery unit was very close to the border, just to make sure that we have the maximum range in the enemy territory. Not as typically as we were trained in the advanced course, that in the defense you are putting them I would say 60% of the round in your area and 40% in the enemy area. We just did it the opposite to make sure that if they are moving, we can start firing as we see them directly and using the maximum range that we already have, which was not very I would say very attractive as an artillery officer. After 24 hours from the war that started, we had already in the Golan Heights 28 battalions, including one battalion of the 240 millimeter rocket, the Russian-made Israeli with Israeli ammunition. Additional for artillery fire support were beside the regular forces that fight on the ground, armor, infantry, that whatever forces were there, we suddenly got during the war additional requests for artillery support. Strange, we did have additional customers. One of them was the Minister of Defense, and the second one was the Air Force itself. I will tell later on exactly what it happened. The only way that we could respond to the request was concentrating artillery fires, moving units from one division artillery to another, and supporting each main effort with the maximum that we couldn't support. When the main battle tank was in the northern part, that the Haim didn't tell it. It was in the 7th Brigade, and that it was a very close, very close combat engagement between tanks from the both sides. Over there, we were able, when they wanted to penetrate in the Syrian area, just on a front of not wider than 2 kilometers, we were able to concentrate over there about 10 battalions of fire of artillery that supported the movement of the 7th Brigade. That when they crossed the border, to the original border into the Syrian, and from there they spread over. They had only one casualty, that one of the tanks ran on a mine. And the same every time that we have to concentrate, we try to move from one division to another without asking any. We took it as we are commanding directly the battalions, and therefore we can talk and move them from one point to another. The division was not allowed to change the decision of the command staff of the Northern Command. What happened beside that is that in the first day, the major point on the northern point that of the Hermon mountain was actually the northern point of the was actually conquered by the Syrian, and the decision was that we are going to deal with that by the end of the war. The main problem is to avoid the Syrian attack on the Golan Heights, which from the Golan Heights, from the border to the Jordan River, is just 25 kilometers at the most of the time less than that, most of the part less than that. Then therefore there is no chance that we can afford taking any other effort beside the effort of preventing the Syrians to conquer the Golan Heights. כן, בסדר, בכלל לא צריך אותו. לסגור את כל המצגת? את השקף לסגור. לסגור אותו. לסגור את השקף. לכבות את המצגת? כן, לכבות את המצגת. The concept of operation beside that was the centralized control of the artillery units. Basically, what I mean by that in many cases we had from the staff, the general staff of the central the territorial command, to give orders over there directly to the batteries, and by that having the maximum the maximum respond on the quickest respond whenever additional fire support is necessary. One of the major problems that we foresee from the first time was the problem that how we supply ammunition. So the deputy chief of staff of the Northern Command went down to the main road in just in the place that you can enter actually in the center of the Golan Heights, and he stopped there all the traffic that was the regular traffic that every division is carrying behind, including the ammunition. And whenever we needed ammunition, we had over there a group of people that volunteered to come to be mobilized, and they didn't have guns to operate. So we took those people, put them in jeeps, and they were able to take the heavy trucks directly to the firing unit. In many cases, the heavy trucks that came with 1,000 rounds went to the units, and the firing units started firing from the heavy trucks directly, without being able even to move the ammunition from the big trucks to the army trucks, and to do it the normal way that normally things were organized. Which is nice to go to control that when the war is not there, but when the war is there, you are trying to eliminate all the logistic problem. In the first day, in the southern part, we lost 2.5 batteries. Basically, the Syrian entered into the southern part of the Golan Heights, and they crossed through the battery locations. One of them was the M109 battery. They fired with the tanks during the night at the range of about 40 meters from the guns, and the other one was again the 155. So two batteries, I would say, and 2 additional guns were destroyed in the first night before 2 a.m. That one of the reasons that the Brigade 179 was instructed to go to the south and to avoid Syrian to penetrate further on this particular area that was mentioned in the briefing before. And in the day 3, I think, or the day 4, something like that, the chief of I would say the advisor of the Air Force that was in the Northern Command was the ex-commander of the Air Force, General Moti Hod. He already passed away, unfortunately, and he came to us and he was looking at what we are doing there. And after half an hour, he said, it came to me, let's make a deal. I am a lieutenant colonel and he's a 2-star general, and let's make a deal. What the deal? You put a line of connection between me and you, because I'm going to sit over there with the Air Force, which they have their rooms and they have their radios and everything. And your S3 will be with me. You will tell him by phone what what target do you want to hit, and according to that, I operate. No one else will give me any instruction where our units are. And that's true because the only one that knew where our people are located was the artillery, having the information from the units, having the information from the strongholds, having the information from the high points of observers. So we could manage all that, and that's the reason that we were able to move the firepower from one part to another according to the major needs. The second thing that happened is that again, just before we started penetrating into the enemy's area, the chief, the Motihod, that he was the advisor of the Air Force in the Northern Command, came to me and he said, look, I have a list here of 14 targets. Those are the anti-air missiles SA-9 or SA-11. I don't remember the name exactly. They were mounted on half tracks and they were ready to move. And that's the new location that the Air Force got it. Now we are going to penetrate with airplanes very low to go to deep into the Syrian area. Within 15 minutes, that's what you have. In 15 minutes, they will cross the border. Try to cover those 14 targets. Now, 15 minutes, how can I explain? All our maps are in their hands. If we are talking Hebrew, they know what we are talking about. They are listening. So actually, I cannot use not the maps, not the code maps, not the codes, nothing. We don't have SNS system that time. We didn't consider even talking about it. So I took it aside and I told the guy that was nearby, I said, what other language do you speak? He said, he's speaking Hungarian. I said, okay, I speak in Romanian. So I said to each battery, I want one at the radio that's speaking either Hungarian or Romanian. I learned that from the Americans. I have to say it, because when in the course were some of officers they fight in Vietnam, and they said that whenever they have a problem, they took two Indians talking from the same tribe, so they could transfer the information not in English, because otherwise the information was immediately known by the enemy. So I just took what I heard from them. I did it here, and suddenly found myself that I'm giving orders in Romanian, and the commander of the Northern Command was sure that something happened to me. I was lucky that Motiot said, "Listen, leave him. He's doing what's supposed to do." And that was a coordinating between the Air Force and the ground forces, unbelievable. It worked super. And day later, or the 1.5 days later, something like that, he came to me, the Motiod, and said, "Look, I have a problem. We had over Damascus 8 A4 with 5-ton ammunition each, and they couldn't reach the target. It's cloudy over there. It's a lot of foggy, and they cannot see the target. Do you have what to do with them?" I said, "Definitely, but instead of talking to you and you talking to them, can I talk with the leader?" So I got he gave me the radio. I talked to the leader. I asked him, "Do you know where Tal Fares is? Is a major point in the Golan Heights?" He said, "Yes, I do." "Can you see it?" He said, you see over there, from east to that few hundred meters, that's our border. You can see the road on the border." He said, "Definitely." I said, "From this border and further east, there is about 1 brigade or maybe more than that of tanks ready to move into Golan Heights, the Syrian one. Go on that full." So he did it. How he did it, I didn't care. I didn't listen. I said, "Thank you." And we went away. And he made a major change in the southern part of the Golan Heights. Later on, we found that the guy even didn't know what actually he did. when we entered already in the Golan Heights, the day in the 16th of I think it was 16th of October, the chief of the Northern Command, Haka, came and asked me, can we reach to fire on the Damascus airport? I said, I am sorry, there is no chance that I have range to the Damascus airport because we are now about 40 kilometers from the Damascus airport. That's where our front line is now located. The only thing we can do it, we are able to do it, no problem at all, with the 175, but I need for that some help. Said, what do you need? I mean, I need some guys that are they will be located in the tanks on the front line. Make sure that when we are crossing the border into Syria and we are coming back with the guns, they will not shoot at us thinking that we are Syrians. Said, okay, we'll got it. Said, and one more thing I need some additional guys that will protect the unit when he's firing. We don't know what is happening in the other line. We don't have any information where the enemy is located. So what I want, when the artillery is firing, they are blind in the unit. They don't see what is happening. Therefore, I want to send a minimum people over there, but I need somebody to protect the area that they are going to be there and firing. How many rounds do you want me to fire? He said about 20 rounds will be sufficient. So I established a group of volunteer. It's a unit, a reserved unit. They are all fathers and they have their businesses and they have families at home. And I asked if I can get 40 volunteers that they will go with the 2 guns and the ammunition and penetrating into the Syrian land. I had more than 80, so we had to decide which is going to be there and which is not. Then we decided and they moved over there. They crossed the line, penetrated 5 kilometers into the enemy area, in the area that was the place that we could reach from there, about 35 kilometers to the Damascus airport. And we calculated the data exactly from our place, because we knew that you can extend the range of the gun if you're firing for a high point, if the weather is beneficial to you, if the wind is correctly. So don't having computers, but having the people that they think properly and they use the firing table accordingly. And we decided where are they going to be located. They went over there, they fired the 20 rounds, came back, nothing happened. Week later, one of the generals went to the unit, firing unit, said, "You say you know that you hit the Damascus airport." During the operation itself, I was crazy. I was sure that I'm risking here people just because our government said that Damascus is within firing range, which was not true. And because we have to solve the problem that they didn't say something which is not actually correct, we have to say to take the risk and to send the people over there. And I wasn't sure that is happening. While before they fire, just like they said that they're in the position, the helicopter came down and Danon, it was the Minister of Defense, came and entered into the room that the commander of the Northern Command was there, and I was requested to come over there. Then Danon asked me, "Tell me what's happening." I said that they are ready to fire a thing in any moment. Said, "Okay, what's the range over there?" I said, "It's about 35. And what's the range of your gun?" I said, 3270. I'm talking about kilometers and not yards or any other measurement, just kilometers. Said, "How do you fire? Do you allow yourself to promise us that you are going to fire and to hit the target?" I was a little bit younger, still I had hair on my head and it was red. I told him, with all the respect, Mr. Minister, I am in the artillery for a long time. I didn't say that I just finished the course in the United States. And I think later on, I will be able to explain you how it can be done. While I'm talking, the information officer, the intelligence officer of the Northern Command is coming with a piece of paper. No computers. We are talking about another area. And he said, and he gave it to Dayan. So Dayan is looking at it and is reading. The Syrians are looking. They are seeing impact rounds in the airport. They don't see any airplane in that. It should be artillery. Said, now I understand what you're talking about. So I understand that suddenly we found during the fight that we have additional customers for artillery fire if only you can provide it, and you don't have to work by the book. You can walk around the book and find a solution whenever it's necessary. The only problem that we had that still remain from the old British type of operation that we learned in the Israeli Defense Forces before Israel was actually existing, we found that it's not suitable for us. Not suitable for us. We have to change the organization. We have to change the forward observer that they are committed to the units, that they will be part of the units. We have that all our artillery should have the maximum range. We have to develop special ammunition with additional performance and not like the regular one. We basically have to stay on our own, because what we had and what we fight with, beside the two battalions of the 1M109 and 2 battalions of the 175, whatever was built in the country.
Avraham, I have a question from the participants.
Yes, please.
Did either the IDF or the Syrians have counter battery fire?
Definitely, yes. The Syrians have counter battery fire. Before they captured back the Golan, the Hermon, between the Hermon and the peak of the mountain of the Hermon, they have located over there and a forward observer staff with some people and many, and from there they see the entire part of the Golan Heights. So what actually happened, whenever a unit was deployed, they started firing. 10 minutes after that, it got artillery fire. It was counter, what is called artillery fire against the artillery units, and they deployed very quickly from one side to another. That was the only way to succeed. That's the way that from that we start developing the concept how to operate a rocket system. In rocket system, you fire, and you are not there before the last round impact. That we developed such a thing with the mortars. You can fire with the mortar 10 rounds and move out. And before the last round impacted, you are not there in the location. They had very heavy artillery fires against us. They have a lot of units. Excuse me. Yes, please. Nowadays, I didn't say one thing about the Hermon Mountain. When we decided that now it's the end of the battle, the main battle, and we went to the Hermon Mountain, we decided that we are going to take the peak and the place that the forward observer of their forward observer was there sitting, and our own stronghold. So there were two brigades. One was the brigade, the Golani brigade, that went from the bottom to our stronghold. The other one was a reserved troop, paratrooper brigade, which came with helicopters from the top. And again, we prepared for the special maps with special codes, because we knew that we are not able to use the regular one. All our maps are in their hands. So we prepared the location. We fired at the location system, or the location that the helicopters were supposed to drop the paratroopers, and we used a pilot on a Skyhawk, that he was the one that adjusted the fire for the Golani Brigade on all the peaks on the way that they have to walk through. And the artillery fire was for the Golan Brigade, since they moved by walking, climbing from one terrace to another. It's a very, very, very difficult way to climb to the strongholds. We planned as an artillery barrage that is moving 200 meters ahead all the time, and we had with each company had its own forward observer. Each brigade had all the forward observer. The infantry, the Golani Brigade had 14 batteries to support. By the way, before we started the war over there, I went to the commander of the Northern Command. They said, to be able to provide the support to those particular units, I need ammunition about 30,000 rounds. 30,000 rounds is about 150 trucks. Divided in 120, 160, 155, and that was the first time that in the army that we got the feeling that we don't have enough ammunition after the first night. But to be ready to do that, and still the rest of the units are on the border, and you cannot afford to leave them without ammunition. So we got during the night the ammunition. We got all the ammunition necessary. Actually, from the 30,000 rounds that we got, we fired about 20,000 just to support those two brigades to conquer the area. And since the Golani Brigade was a northern brigade, it has a regular brigade that belonged to the Northern Command. That way, finally, the decision was that they will conquer back our strongholds that was over there. That was a key stronghold that actually, in a good weather day, you can see from there up to Damascus.
Avraham?
Yes, please.
I'm just taking a look at the time and send you a reminder.
No, okay. I actually, that what I wanted to tell you is the minimum time. That's what I said. And if you have any additional questions, please do.
Thank you very much. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
We're going to move on to Major General Uri Simhoni. He was at the time in the J3 of the Northern Command. He's going to tell us about the Northern Command. Wait 1 second. Let's see, is there a question, an open question here? Counter battery. Did either side have counter battery radar capability during the artillery battle?
The Syrians did have. We knew that they have. They have. We didn't have any at that time. One of the decisions to change the artillery attitude. We do have nowadays long-range radars that you can actually locate. You can locate your round, and you can locate the location that it should impact.
Thank you.
36, 37, and better than that.
So, Major General Simhoni.
Hi.
I'm going to turn up
everybody.
There's the microphone.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
All right.
hear you and see you.
So again,
Welcome.
good morning, everybody. And it is a great honor and a pleasure for me to speak with such a respected group of American war veterans. My name is Uri Simhoni. I am a retired Major General. During the war, I was 35 years old, Lieutenant Colonel, and in charge of the operation of the Northern Command, what you call J3 in your terminology. My military background, in short, I joined the Paratroopers Corps when I was 17 and 6 months. We all volunteer, all my classmates, we volunteer to the, not Corps. At that time, we had only one battalion. The battalion commander was Ariel Sharon Arik, the famous commander, military commander, and Prime Minister of Israel later on. What can I say? The battalion at that time carried out all the anti-terrorist operations. We called it retaliation operations against terrorists during the 50s, the early 50s. Most of the operations were not on the terrorists themselves, but on military, Egyptian military units or Jordanian military or Syrian military units. I personally took part, I believe, in 15 or 16 such raids on this kind of. In 56, the war of Kadesh, what we call the Sinai war, the battalion, we jumped about 200 kilometers deep into the Sinai Desert, about 40 kilometers from the Suez Canal, where we had such a, would say, tough, bitter fight against Egyptian forces trying to cross the Mitle Pass into Sinai. It was very short war, 6 days, and this was the end of it. The Israeli Defense Forces managed to conquer almost all Sinai. We didn't reach the Suez Canal because of the political reasons. You know that the French and British army should have do that, and they didn't do it, and this was it. Before I was appointed to be the J3 of the Northern Command, I was battalion commander, special reconnaissance battalion commander called EGOZ, which means NATS battalion. It was the reconnaissance battalion working in the Northern Command along the borders of the Lebanese borders and the Syrian borders, mainly fighting terrorists on both sides of the borders. Speaking about the plans of the Northern Command, I'll do it in short. You know that we have a compulsory service, 3 years. The ground forces are mostly reserves. We have a relatively small nucleus of regulars, and most of the forces are reserved, while the Air Force and the Navy are mostly regulars. The ground forces are reserved, and they're based on, I believe, very, very effective system of training and using the, you heard about it from Colonel Danon, how to use the reserve units. We have 3 defense operations, names according to the degrees of power. Sand, which is to defend by regulars, was not a plan, and limestones, and the full plan was called Bazlat, I believe in English, Bazlat, which is the strongest stone that we have in Israel, mainly on the Golan Heights. The plans, which approved by all echelon up to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense, based on the assumptions that we have 48 hours early warning. This is the time needed in order to deploy all our forces on the Golan Heights. The plan was, the defense plan was, Bazelet was 2 armored divisions plus 2 infantry brigades on the Golan Heights. This was the plan, the original plan, which never happened, by the way. During the 48 hours, the Air Force supposed to destroy the SAM missiles in order to be free later on to support the ground forces. And the reserve will be mobilized, go to the depot, and the way described to you by Colonel Danon, and then go to the area where they supposed to be deployed. Then comes the surprise, which is not exactly surprise, but to be surprised. I'll tell you exactly how it happened to us. Basically, we were on alert 24 hours earlier, and the headquarters, the Northern Commander, General Hofi, a very, very good man, and a small group of staff officers like Bar David, you call them, myself, and some others. We moved to Nafach, the middle of the Golan Heights. We saw the Syrians. You know, Golan Heights is not a big area. We saw the tanks, we saw the artillery, and we were told by the headquarters that don't worry, this is just a training. This is the annual training, and they have no any war intentions. Don't worry. We were worried, but you can worry, but if you don't have nothing, something to do, basically you're stuck with your worriness. About 5 in the morning, General Hofi got a phone call. Today, 6 afternoon, there will be a war. The Egyptian and the Syrians are going to attack us. Today, 6 afternoon, and the commander of the army, General El-Azhar, Dado, told him to go immediately to Tel Aviv to see what to do, and he told us to prepare the plans and everything. And we asked him, all right, can we start mobilize the reserve? The answer was no. There is no any approval to mobilize reserve, which is against all the plans. I mean, at this moment, the plans are basically not existent anymore. This is it. Because there is no chance that from 5 until 6 afternoon, I mean, less than 12 hours, we mobilize a brigade, call people from home, from Tel Aviv, from wherever they are, and in 12 hours we'll be with the tanks, with everything on the Golan Heights. But even this, we started to lose time. Every minute was minutes and hours. Only around 10 in the morning, the approval to mobilize the reserves was given. So instead of 48 hours, we have only 6 hours. And therefore, when the war started, the ratio, the forces ratio was the way you saw just an hour ago. The war started at 2 o'clock, not at 6. The war began at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Yom Kippur, it was Shabbat, Saturday. General Hafi was in Tel Aviv. Heavy shelling began. Very heavy, not heavy, is very, very heavy. Thousands, about, if I remember correctly, about 30,000 shells of all kinds of mortars, field artillery, all kinds of cannons in half an hour, something like half an hour, falls on the Golan Heights. Golan Heights basically was covered by dust and smoke. And I knew immediately that that we have a problem. That situation is very, very bad. I saw we have experience, all of us. We have experience of the war of '67 and the war of attrition, and before the war of '56, and many operations between the wars. But the volume was different. The volume was different. The amount of forces, the heavy fire, the rate of the movement of forces was totally different from what we experienced in the past. So, you know, I can tell you about myself, my situation. Luckily enough, I have good teachers, good commanders in the past that I used to basically to follow when I was a soldier and young officer, to look at them, to look how they behave and what they do and how they take decisions. And I learned from them that stay cold. If the situation is bad, be even colder. If it stands, be relaxed. It will not help you to be tense, not help you to start to panicize or whatever to do. Even though I was only lieutenant colonel and there was some officers seniors than me, I took the microphone. And the first decision was to immediately use the reserve that we had, the 7th Armored Brigade, not to wait. When you are with less forces than you really need, you have to prioritize things. You cannot protect all the front. You cannot protect every strong point and every area. So you have to basically to protect the key area, the most important places, hold them. And the most important places on the Golan Heights are the northern part of the Golan Heights and the roads that going from the Jordan Valley to the Golan Heights to enable the reserve to move from the depots up to the front. If the Syrians will take the control on the road, just the high points, because you climb from 0 to 700, 800, 900 meters high. If the Syrians catch the control on the roads, it will be very, very, very difficult for the reserves to go into the Golan Heights. And therefore, we lost ground on the southern part, but we control all the roads and we hold the southern part, which is the closer road to our to our territory, to the kibbutzim and along the Galilee and along the Jordan River, etc. I knew the Golan Heights very well. I lived there basically from the day we conquered the Golan Heights. I stayed there, and for me, you know, speaking with American officers, you used to fight far from home. But I was born in Ginosar, in small kibbutz on the Sea of Galilee. When I stand on the Sea of Galilee and I turn my head back, I can see the lights from my mother window. Okay, it's not very far. So this is totally different. This is totally different. But it was clear that we had a problem. We did not destroy the SAM missile, which means the Air Force will not be able to support the ground forces, which was one of the most important assumptions of our plans. The reserves will not be in time. We have to alter everything and change all the plans and do everything very fast. Now, commander decisions, no matter where and when, always taking under pressure, and you always have more than one alternative, and you have to take one. And I took the decisions that I took when I was there, and later on, when General Kofi arrived to Nafach, he approved all the steps which were taken. Even anyway, could not be changed already, because what really saved the war for us was the reserve units. The reserve units, first of all, within 24 hours, all the reserves units were already involved in fighting on the Golan Heights. Big part of them earlier. And they managed to take all the key areas before the Syrians arrived. And later on, I believe you'll hear from my friend Maluvani that the Syrians surprised, because they knew the way we knew them as they know us. We are neighbors, and they were sure that they have 48 hours, and they surprised to meet reserve units already on the Golan Heights, which was against all doctrines and all the information that they had according to their plans. The first reserve unit from 179 Brigade, 1st Battalion. When I say battalion, don't speak about 30 tanks. And I believe that Colonel Danon already told you. Battalion, the way all the systems were broken. Tanks sent to the front as fast as, not like it should be done, you know, all brigade go together and command. No, one or a platoon or no matter, in order to reach those points before the Syrians reach it. Now all the reserve units were deployed not where they supposed to be according to the plans. Units that supposed to be fight in the north found themselves in the south and vice versa. So basically, everything was in total disorder, but the reserve commanders were so well trained and have the right personality and experience to really to overcome all those difficulties. And this is what saved the war for us. You know, when we speak about surprises, but surprises we see everywhere. You know that, and we can even think that the human beings are mistakes prone. Okay, we do mistakes. Everybody do mistakes. The Russians, the Americans, we Germans, everybody do mistakes. This is part of the you know, I can differentiate between different kind of mistakes. Tactical mistakes, so the company commander make a mistake, he pay immediately and be punished. When headquarters make mistakes, this is different mistakes. They grow up slowly. You don't many books were written about it. I'm sure you read part of them, psychological and sociological and all kind of explanation. But it happened. Now it took us 36 hours to move from defense to counterattack. It happened because the only reserve division that the Israeli forces at that time, 146 division, sent from the central command to the northern command under the command of General Musa Peled, and they arrived on wheels, on chains, because there are no other way. So, I don't know, 60, 70 kilometers on the road, and this will enable us, when the Syrians were blocked, after about 24 hours or a little bit more, I believe, according to what Haim said, that the last Syrian attempt to attack was around 4 or 5 afternoon on Sunday. This is and that's it. They were blocked at that time, and the decision was to launch immediate counterattack, not to wait. The main attack was started in the south from the Sea of Galilee, and the other units which were already involved in the fighting, they pressed from the north to the south. It took about 3 days of counterattack until we reached the border. So 5 days after the big surprise, the whole Golan Heights territory was already back in our hands with a heavy price. Cost us heavily. But the Syrians lost about, I believe, some 60–70% of all their tanks, armed forces. In the Golan Heights, after the war, there was about 800 Syrian burned or deserted tanks. Now the next decision was to not to stop, but to try to get closer to Damascus. We never planned to take Damascus. It was not part of our plans, but to be close enough, maybe to reach, as Bar David told you, the airport. All right, but but to threaten Damascus, to shorten basically to stop the fighting, not to let it. The first decision was to attack immediately, but then the division and the brigade commanders told General Hofi that they need 24 hours to reorganize the units, heavy casualties, to appoint new commanders, battalion commanders, company commanders, tank commanders, whatever, and to try to fix much more tanks, because basically we lost about half of our tanks, I believe, or something like this, something like that. Anyway, they need some rest and some time to reorganize. So on the 6 days of the war, we launched the counterattack into the northern part of Syria. In 24 hours, we managed to take what we called it later on the Muvlat, the Syrian pocket or something like that, up to about 40 kilometers from Damascus. We made some, I would say, very, very grave mistakes. Basically, when you attack on the attack, you don't have to attack in a wide front. Basically, the main idea is you don't have to fight with the maximum enemy. You have to break a corner and through the hole, penetrate fast, as deep as you can, and exploit this broken corner maximum. When the first division, Division 36, headed by General Eitan Rafulu, later on became the, they attack fast and managed to go through inside, and the impression was that the Syrians were broken. There were reports that they are running, that they are leaving everything behind, and we wanted to exploit the success. And we sent the second division, 120. Dan Leonard was the commander, to go on the main road from Quneitra, the Damascus. The first brigade, Brigade 179, suffered heavy casualties, and only the 679, as I think, told you by Colonel Danon, after them managed to go through the first line and go to the deep. It was unnecessary because all forces could have go through the open area, which already was in our hands. But this is what really happened, and this was it. Now, what really happened after the invasion into Syria is the unexpected forces appear suddenly. The Iraqi armored divisions from the east, and the Jordanians from the south, and there was no any reason to continue to go inside and deeper and deeper and deeper, because we will expose our flanks, and it was too dangerous, and we don't have enough unit, enough power to go deeper, and we had enough territory to negotiate the ceasefire we had enough cards and negotiation cards for that. Some personal ideas about wars, you know. To draw conclusions from one war to another is not simple. Every war is different from the others. If you look at two wars, the World War II is different from Korea. Korea is different towards Vietnam. From Vietnam, Vietnam is different from Kosovo, and from Afghanistan. Every war has each characteristics, and it depends on the conditions, the situation, everything. So basically, to say, you know, people always used to say, today we have a new war, so all war is new. They never repeat themselves. So this is just an empty word, you know, that people are. But some things do repeat themselves, such as surprises, and surprises, as we said about it. Of course, they are not born in one day or just. They develop slowly and sometimes very slowly. The real answer for planners how to overcome it is not to take unnecessary risk and to enlarge the safety margins in every plan. Take wide margins. Don't go on the edge. And I would say even, you know, don't use the terminology which I personally hate, calculated risk, because I don't believe in it. I don't believe that risks can be calculated. I do believe in really in very systematic way of thinking and very, very wide safety margins. This is what I think about this situation like that. I follow from distance. I'm not involved for many years. That develop on military conceptions such as from the Americans, and we are trying to copy it us in Israel, the RMA, etc., etc., etc. I don't believe in it. I don't believe, but I do believe in common sense. And you know, common sense, it looks something very simple, but it's not. When you speak about common sense, you see, you see a farmer going, looking at the sky, say, well, today will be rainy, or something. This is not the common. Common sense is is a result or accumulation of a lot of experience, a lot of thinking, a lot of personal experience, and other experience around you that you know, etc. And it is very, very complicated and very, very healthy way of thinking and taking decisions. This is about it. Maybe one more words again on something. You know, we are looking at this has happened because this has happened. This has happened because this has happened. We look at the relations between reason and result as if relations between father and son. You know, this you did this. This is what happened. So this is totally incorrect. Even though it seems simple, because any result or happen because of many reasons. Every reason has many results, and the result became the reasons for the next result. it's a change of it's not more complicated to analyze it as something very simple. If something you do mistakes, it is, they go, if you do this, this would happen. Maybe yes, maybe no. At the end, we know only what really happened. There is no if. No if. This is it. Thank you.
General, that was wonderful. It was very engaging, and so we'll have a bit of time for question and answers towards the end. But now we're going to move on to Colonel Pesach Maluvani, and we're going to hear his take from the other side, from the Syrian side. So Pesach, I'm going to turn the microphone over to you if you're ready. Welcome. I think you're muted. I think your microphone is muted.
Now it's open.
Perfect.
Okay, good day to everybody. I want to join my friends thanking you for inviting us to tell you the story of the Yom Kippur War in the Golan Heights. I'm going to describe to you how this war was looked like from the other side of the hill, according to my research work based on Syrian, Egyptians, Iraqi and Soviet and Russian sources. I make a difference between Soviet from that time and Russians from the new time. I'll present a short review of its background of the war, the cooperation with Egypt, the Syrian preparations and plan, the war itself, and the main decisions taken by Assad and the Syrian High Command. I served in the military intelligence of the IDF for about 40 years, part of that as a reservist. I didn't miss one war in the Middle East during this period, including wars that Israel was not involved in them. I wrote several books on some of the Arab armies in the Middle East and the military intervention of the Soviet Union in the area. One book on the Iraqi army was published in English with the help of AUSA. You can find also on the net a booklet in English dealing with the Syrian Special Forces operations during the Yom Kippur War. And going now to the war. The Yom Kippur War, or as it's called by the Arabs, the Ramadan War or October War, and by the Syrians themselves, the Liberation War of October, was launched on midday of 6 October by the armies of Egypt and Syria simultaneously, as you know. The war was a consequence of the decision of the Egyptian leadership, President Nasser and later Sadat himself, who replaced him after he died in September 70, and the Syrian leadership headed by President Assad, who restore the lands Israel occupied from them during the Six-Day War in June 1967, the Sinai Peninsula in the south and the Golan Heights in the north. Both decided that what has been taken by force should be restored by force. Both knew that Israel had a very strong army that showed them its strengths and capabilities during the 67 war. That's why the basic concept was to go to war as a combined coalition between both countries in order to force Israel to fight in parallel on both fronts, and by this to split its forces so that each of the Arab armies will be able to cope with the forces that will operate in its front. The Syrians especially were aware that they might not be able to stand against the IDF and wanted to ensure that the split of the IDF forces will happen by coordinating with the Egyptians to start the war with a parallel airstrike and artillery preparation. So Israel will not have any choice but to fight on both fronts in parallel. As we know, according to its consequences, the Syrian attack on Golan realized the statement attributed to the famous German Field Marshal von Moltke the Elder, who shaped the Prussian army in the second half of the 19th century, that, I quote, "No military plan survived first contact with the enemy," a very important statement for military planners and historians. Based on their strategy to join war with Egypt and with the backing of their patron, the Soviet Union, the Syrians started their preparations and planning like the Egyptians, and with full coordination between them in this national enterprise. Both countries started to build their armies as new ones, after the 67 war, equipped with new weapons delivered by the Soviet Union, so they will be able to cope with the enemy in the Israeli army, especially the Israeli Air Force and the Israeli Army. First, they put a great effort to raise the low morale of their troops after the great defeat in 1967, especially in the Air Force. Second, they organized their forces, especially the ground forces, in a different way. The Syrians built permanent divisions and much more forces than they had in 67. They built a strong air defense system based on surface-to-air missiles so that it will give them a good answer to the threat of the Israeli Air Force. They also increased their capabilities to fight against the Israeli armor by building more armored forces and increase their firepower in the land battle by building more artillery and anti-tank units. Thirdly, they decided to improve their training system and put the emphasis on training the offensive rather than the defensive. The Soviet Union had a very important role in supporting them by supplying the weapons and equipment they needed, assisting them by advisors and experts in order to absorb those weapons and their fighting doctrine properly, giving them political backing. And during the war, the Soviet advisors participated in their units on all theaters of fighting, ground, air, and air defense and navy. Some of them were killed and injured. They used also Soviet assets to help the Syrians by intelligence, electronic warfare, and advising the Syrians in different levels of headquarters and units. The consequences of all this effort was mainly the growth in numbers of the armed forces. In manpower, the Syrian army grew from about 70 to 80,000 men in 1967 to about 170, 180,000 in 73. In weapons, in tanks, more than 1,000 tanks, including 400 advanced T-62 tanks, compared to 500 tanks at all in 67. More than 700 APCs, including advanced BMP-1, compared to 500 in 67. More than 1,000 artillery pieces of all types, compared to 300 only in 67. And the same in the Air Force, about 300 combat aircraft of different types in 73, compared to about 100 in 67. And the new thing was 6 new surface-to-air brigades compared to none in 67. In formations, 5 divisions, 2 of them armored, compared to 3 brigade groups. There was no division at that time. 22 brigades at all, compared to 30 in 67, 10 of them armored brigades, compared to 2 tank brigades in 67, and 4 mechanized brigades, compared to only 1 in 67, and the rest were infantry brigades. In 67, they had more infantry formation and less armor than in 73. President Hafez al-Assad, the father of Bashar, this day president, was the architect of the war in Syria, parallel to President Sadat in Egypt. He dreamed day and night about the war and that it will restore to the Arabs their honor and glory that were badly damaged in 67. He felt that his personal responsibility to restore the Golan to Syria, as he was blamed that he lost it when he was defense minister. He did everything to achieve his goal in this historic move that he called the War of Liberation, assuming that it would end in a great victory for the entire Arab nation and the Syrian people in particular. In order to achieve this goal, the Syrian plan was based on a simultaneous attack on both fronts, as I mentioned, achieving surprise. Their main problem was how to conceal the activities and preparations from the other side, Israel, but also from the United States that will not disclose their preparations. The Syrians tried unsuccessfully to bring King Hussein of Jordan also to join this initiative, but he refused. The plan itself included a preliminary air and artillery strike, followed by a quick and deep penetration of the armored forces in order to achieve a quick decision. The whole operation, according to the doctrine, based on the sub-doctrine, was a daily mission for the ground forces to cross 20 to 25 kilometers at all and to reach their operational goal, the Jordan River, very quickly. They planned to get there at 7 o'clock in the morning of the 7th of October, which means less than 24 hours from the beginning of the war. This to assure that they will take the Golan before the arrival of the Israeli reserve forces, which will take, according to their assessment, at least 24 hours, if not more. In order to delay the arrival of the reserve forces, the Syrian planned also to block all the entrances to the Golan from Israel, the Jordan River bridges, as well as the Al-Jibin Pass in the southern part of the Golan, by landing commando forces by helicopters in those places as the war begins. Finally, they didn't operate it because they saw on the radar activity of our Air Force, and they believed that we know what they are going to do, and we are waiting to shut down those helicopters. And all this operation was abolished. This will give them enough time to deal with the enemy forces in stages, first with the regular forces and afterwards with the reserve forces that will arrive. The Air Force, and especially the air defense, will be responsible to deal with the Israeli Air Force and also support the ground forces, defend their air bases and vital objects in Damascus and all over the country. The Syrians had a great advantage in their order of battle compared to the Israeli forces deployed then in the Golan. They had 3 reinforced divisions in the first echelon. Each division was reinforced by another brigade, versus 4 Israeli brigades, 2 of them armored and 2 infantry, as they saw it. The balance of forces from the Israeli perspective was in tanks, about 800 in the first echelon, versus they gave us even more than we had, 272 tanks, when in fact there was about 177. In artillery, they had about 1,000 guns versus 337 barrels. In fact, you heard that there were actually 40 and some guns. Adding to this, they had also a reserve of 2 armored divisions and 1 armored brigade, independent brigade. Their order of battle also included a Moroccan infantry brigade with a tank battalion that arrived to Syria in the summer of 1973 by sea, carried by Soviet vessels, and also Palestinian forces, 2 brigades from the Palestinian Liberation Army and the Psych organization forces that were both under the command of the Syrian General Headquarters. Each infantry brigade had its organic tank battalion of 41 T-54 tanks, while the armored brigade had 95 T-55 tanks. Only 2 formations were equipped with T-62 tanks. The 1st Armored Division and the Armored Brigade of the Defense Companies, a kind of a Praetorian Guard on the capital and the regime, under direct control of Assad through his brother Rifat, who was its commander. The main effort of the attack will be in the central sector, while the secondary effort will be in the Quneitra sector. The attack will be carried out according to the doctrine. First, overcoming the frontal obstacle that included an anti-tank ditch and minefields by the infantry and engineer troops, using bridging equipment, bulldozers and mine cleaning crews in order to prepare secure passes for the following forces. The infantry brigade, the first tactical echelon of 3 divisions, would penetrate after crossing the obstacle into the depths of up to 8 kilometers and will establish a firm base for the penetration of the second echelon of the divisions, the armored and mechanized brigades that will continue the attack up to the Jordan River. After taking control of the whole Golan, the 2 armored divisions will enter the Golan on October 7th and deploy as a main counterattack force to be ready to fight the Israeli main counterattack forces when it will come. The Syrians, as well as the Russian advisors, believed that this is a good plan and they are able to perform it successfully. But as I mentioned at the beginning, no military plan survives first contact with the enemy, and here what happened. After they concluded with the Egyptians the D-Day and H-hour that suited the Egyptian plan more than the Syrian plan, everything was ready for the beginning of the war. And here a very interesting story. On October 1st, Assad met with the Soviet ambassador in Damascus and told him that Syria and Egypt are going to open a war against Israel very soon. This information brought to the evacuation of the Soviet personnel families from both countries. That was an important warning sign about what was going to happen in the coming days. But as you know, our intelligence, as well as Western intelligence agencies, failed to consider it as an important piece of information. In this meeting with the Soviet ambassador, Assad explained to him also the strategy for the war, his strategy for the war, telling him that his army will be able to fight no more than 2 or 3 days in order to conquer the Golan. But if it will not succeed, he wants the Soviet Union will intervene and bring to an immediate ceasefire while his forces still hold part of the Golan Heights, so that it will serve him to, in the coming negotiations with the Israelis, to evacuate the rest of the area and return it back to Syria. This shows you how much he trusted his own army. The war started as planned, simultaneously on both fronts, but with lesser surprise to Israel on the Syrian front. According to Assad himself, the Syrians were surprised to find the Israeli forces ready to, in their positions, to face their attacking forces. After a preparatory air and artillery strike along the whole Golan, the Syrian forces started the ground attack by breaching the forward obstacles, a subject they put a lot of effort before the war in order to study and train themselves how to overcome it. In the northern sector, the Syrians failed to do so because of stubborn resistance of our armored brigade, the number 7 brigade, that defended it. In the central sector, they succeeded more, but suffered a great deal of losses. And only in the southern sector, where there were lesser Israeli forces deployed, they got more success. After they succeeded to penetrate the Golan with 5 of their 6 infantry brigades, one failed to do so on the northern sector, they deployed in the evening hours their mechanized and armored brigades as was planned, which met with stubborn resistance from the Israeli tank crews that inflicted on them great numbers of losses. The situation became problematic for the Syrians because their timetable was not going as they planned, and Assad was afraid from the coming Israeli main counterattack after the arrival of the reserve forces into the Golan Heights, and he pressed the forces to hurry up. The fighting went on in the night hours as the Syrians had an advantage on the Israeli tanks being equipped with night vision devices. In the afternoon, the Syrian commando troops conquered the Israeli stronghold on the Hermon mountain, taking about 30 Israeli soldiers in captivity. Actually, it was the only important Syrian achievement for the first day of the war. This operation was part of the plan to destroy all the Israeli intelligence posts on the Golan in order to blind the Israeli intelligence from getting information about the fighting on the battlefield. In the central sector, the Syrian army managed to reach to Hoshniyeh, several kilometers from the border, but the most deep Syrian penetration, as I mentioned, was done in the southern sector on both axes of advance towards the west and towards the south. At night, the Syrian command understand that their dream to get to the Jordan River at the coming morning becomes not real. And Assad decided to make a major change in the plan in order to save his opportunity to make his plan successful, and ordered the launching of the first armored division into battle not as planned. The division was the elite force of the Syrian army, equipped with the most advanced tanks and APCs, T-62s and BMP-1. And its mission was now to destroy all the Israeli forces in the central sector, take the Israeli headquarters at Nafah, and advance northward in order to destroy all the Israeli forces in the northern sector, the Israeli 7th Armored Brigade, and by this open the barriers that blocked the 7th Syrian Division from penetrating into the Golan. The division attack started with a delay in time and in great disorder, so that only one tank brigade managed to get into battle, but met with a very stiff resistance of our reserve forces that already arrived to the area, especially Brigade 679, in which my friend Haim Danon described it. It's fighting. And after heavy fighting, the Syrian forces retreated with heavy losses. The contribution of the other 2 brigades of the division to the battle was limited. After this failure, Assad understood that he lost his chance to take the Golan back to Syrian control and started to behave very nervous and furious. He summoned his generals for a meeting and ordered a halt of all the forces in the places they reached, that nobody of them understood its reason. He called to his headquarters the Soviet ambassador and told him what happened and conveyed by him to the leadership in Moscow his demand to arrange a quick ceasefire before the Israeli major counterattack will be opened. He also phoned to Iraqi leadership to ask them to send their forces and asked King Hussein of Jordan to join the war and open a third front against Israel. He started to implement the plan B of his strategy in the war, as he told it to the Soviet ambassador in their meeting before the war. The Soviets were surprised by this request and didn't understand what happened and how things changed so quickly on the battlefield. They thought that this was a mistake of their ambassador, and therefore they sent their ambassador in Egypt to meet President Sadat and ask him if he knows anything about this development and what is his position toward the ceasefire at this stage of the war. Sadat was surprised as well, and he told the Soviet ambassador that his army is succeeding well in its operation, and there is no reason for him to stop now the war. And if Assad wants to get a ceasefire, let him do so. Egypt will continue by itself to fulfill its plans. Sadat sent a cable to Assad asking him about his will to stop the war on the Syrian front, as the Soviet ambassador told him. Assad answered also by a cable and lied to him by saying that it's not true, and that the situation with the Syrian army is okay, and a decision about ceasefire will be done in full cooperation with both partners. The Syrians see this battle as the battle against the 1st Armored Division as the most important tank battle of the war, and are celebrating their Armored Corps Day on this date, October 7th. The Syrians paid a heavy price in losses till the end of that day, more than 600 tanks from the beginning of the war, a very expensive price for achieving actually no gains, as they expected. After this plan failed, it seems that Assad returned to his senses, and on the morning of October 8, he ordered the renewal of the fighting and ordered to prepare a new attack. This attack was launched in the morning of October 9th as a double-pronged attack by 2 divisions, one in the northern sector by 2 new armored brigades that didn't participate in the war till now, one from the 3rd Armored Division, equipped with T-55 tanks, and the second, an elite brigade from the Rifat Assad forces, equipped with 62 tanks. This attack is called by us the Battle of the Valley of Tears. The second attack was launched in the central sector, again by the 1st Armored Division, what had left from her. Both attacks were supported by landing commando forces in the enemy's rear. After a few hours, the Syrian command realized that the attacks on both sectors failed. The forces suffered heavy losses, and Assad and his command understood that this is the end of their efforts to take the Golan, as they realized also that the Israeli counterattack is already in progress by new forces that arrived to the Golan, and that they ordered all Syrian forces to withdraw back to their former positions east of the border, a step they completed on the next day, October 10th. Assad's army failed to fulfill its mission that it was prepared for in the previous years. The Syrian army now changed its mission from offense to defense, which it performed better against the Israeli attack in Syria itself. The penetration of the Israeli forces into Syria and their advance toward Damascus created panic within the Syrians, and there is evidence that the government and the military leadership prepared to abandon the capital and move to Aleppo in the north and continue the war from there. But because of the arrival of the Iraqi forces to Syria, they suspended their plans to do so. The arrival of expeditionary forces from other Arab countries, Iraq, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia at this stage of the war helped the Syrians to hold out against the Israeli attack, and they believed also that it helped them to save Damascus from occupation by Israeli forces, although there was no Israeli intention to do so. At the end of the war, arrived to Syria forces from other countries like Pakistan, North Korea, Cuba, and even an independent Soviet SA-6 surface-to-air brigade, mainly to help the Syrians to defend Damascus. In his gamble to attack the Golan, Assad lost in the first 5 days of the war, most of his armor, 1,200 tanks, according to his own words. He lost the Golan twice, in 1.5 days in June 67 and in 4 days in October 73. In the next days, he was frustrated very much by his partner Sadat when he finds out that he has different plans and does not intend to implement their agreement and the plans they agreed upon and to advance to the passage in Sinai. This served him after the war to blame Sadat for his contribution to the failure of the Syrian attack in the war. To sum up, according to criticism published years later by Syrian officers who participated in the war and by Soviet advisors and Russian historians and analysts, the consequences of the Syrian attack in the situation of an overwhelming advantage in power over the small Israeli forces that were deployed in the Golan and their limited mission to cross through a few kilometers to the Jordan River showed that the Syrian army was not ready enough for this war and was not capable to complete its historic mission and to realize its leader dream, which proved again that the statement of the famous German Field Marshal von Moltke was fully realized in this case. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Pesach. That's fascinating. And could you tell me, did the Soviets were actually about to unload their ships at some point, weren't they?
What I didn't understand.
Weren't the Soviets about to land? Weren't the Soviets about to land in Syria, land some troops in Syria at some point?
Not actually. There were rumors and thought maybe they had a very aggressive defense minister, Mr. Grechko, who actually tried to make any proposition of such a thing, but there were no real signs that Soviet forces were prepared to do so. It's more a kind of, I don't know if it's a legend, but it's more something to threaten the West. And because of all this, as you know, the states announced, how do we call it, preparedness in the nuclear field.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn over the microphone to General Swan now to Jeffrey to give us some conclusions and takeaways. Here's your microphone.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen. Let me give you some thoughts here as we kind of wrap up this session. First of all, let me thank all the speakers. I mean, fascinating. I every time I look at the Israeli experience in 67, 73, and even the conflicts after that, we in the U.S. Army continue to learn lessons from your experience, even the more difficult ones that you described here today. Thank you to Eric for bringing this group together, and Gideon, always good to see you and your team as well. Mr. Sachs and Sergeant Major Jasper, thank you for your partnership. I really appreciate it. Let me just give you 5 or 6 thoughts I have here after what I've heard today. At this session and previously with Gideon and others, the term surprise comes up a lot, and I've heard each of you describe that in different ways, whether it's strategic or tactical surprise. I think the lesson that comes out of the experience of 1973 is the need for vigilance, constant vigilance, study of adversaries, what their intent is well before a conflict starts. We're experiencing this today as we look at what's going on in Ukraine, what's gone on in Nagorno-Karabakh, what's going on in the South China Sea, in other places in the world. Constant vigilance and understanding of your adversaries' intent as well as capability, that they're combined. The second thing, the nature of war never changes. War is inherently political. The war of 73 was inherently a political war. at the end of the day. But what does change is the character of war, and that is the way we wage war over the years. And if we're not agile enough to understand that the character of war is changing all the time, we are not going to be prepared. In the U.S. Army over the last few years, we've established a new command, Army Futures Command, to do just that. Look at the future, develop capabilities that we see are going to be needed against adversaries that are actually quite strong these days. Investment. We talked a lot. Haim talked about the tank development in the IDF and its other weapon systems as well over the years. There's a phrase we use in the United States: you can pay me now or you can pay me later. These things are expensive. Budgets are tight in all of our countries. The defense budgets are always under pressure, but the cost in human life is going to be high if we don't make those investments now or make them in a timely way. So investment in our capabilities is absolutely huge. The Israelis have demonstrated this probably as well as any nation in the world, a term that we use in the US Army called mission command. In World War II, the Germans called it Auftragstaktik. What that means is an ability for junior leaders to understand their role in an operation. I asked the question earlier about how did you communicate with one another in a very chaotic situation. Sometimes you will not be able to communicate. And that's when mission command and understanding what the task is so important. The commander's intent, what are the commanders trying to achieve? The commander may no longer be there, may no longer be available. Then what? It comes down to understanding that intent. George Patton, I think, probably summed it up best. You can have the greatest plan in the world, as Pesach just talked about, but unless you have well-trained soldiers to accomplish the task, it doesn't matter how good your plan is. And many times, both our armies, the American Army and the IDF, have succeeded in executing poor plans because of well-trained soldiers. And that's another one of those investments that we can never let up on, is having well-trained soldiers, well-trained forces. Back to the point about surprise, a corollary to surprise is assumptions. The assumptions you make today will not be the same assumptions you make tomorrow or next year about your own forces or about your adversaries. And so constantly challenging our assumptions, telling ourselves things we don't want to hear. And frankly, the Israelis, I think, have done a good job of introspection, admitting where there were weaknesses instead of falling back on pride or hubris, constantly asking the question, are our assumptions still valid? Allies and partners came up several times, both on the Arab side with the Soviets, but even on the IDF side with the Americans and others. Today's world, military operations are almost always going to involve some type of ally or partner. It may not be in an active role on the battlefield. It may be in a supporting role, but the role of allies and partners is always going to be very, very critical to what we do. And lastly, the real lesson I took away from this, I mentioned earlier in my remarks that the US Army developed its doctrine in the years after the '73 war. We called it active defense. You've heard that term, and you all know about air-land battle that came after that. But your experience, all those doctrines and your experience, there was a phrase that we always used, and that was fight outnumbered and win. The Israelis will always have to fight outnumber and still win. Even the Americans in certain cases may have to fight outnumbered and win. So that's the big takeaway for me. How do we fight outnumbered and win when we have very, very diabolical and well-trained, well-equipped adversaries? That's some of the lessons I got from this, Eric, and everyone else. And I look forward to the next session when we can be together again to discuss these important issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you, General Swan. Jeffrey? Jeffrey,
Yes, I'm here. Actually, I thought, Larry, you were going to do the closing remarks, but that's fine. I have a few things to say. I'm just amazed at the use of reservists by the Israeli Defense Forces. There's no way, speaking as somebody who served on active duty in the Illinois Guard and in the Army Reserve, that we could expect our people to be fighting within 24 hours. You know, I guess that has a lot to do with having it was such close proximity to the Holocaust that people realize that they are fighting for their lives and the lives of everybody that they know. So that's all. I'm going to close, and Larry, you close up for me.
Okay, let's give it back to Eric for a moment, and I'll wrap it up.
Okay, so it was such a pleasure. About 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to speak on behalf of AUSA with Gideon in Tel Aviv, and I received this coin, and it's very special to me. I took it back from Germany, and it's on my collection of cool things in my life, and I always show it. And I hope that we have a great ongoing partnership with Jewish war veterans and the Institute for Advanced Military Thinking. I think that we really firmed that up now, and I'm looking forward to our next steps. I'll remind everybody that we had a change of schedule because we failed to realize that the original date of part 2 was a holiday. The 16th is a holiday, and so we switched that to the 23rd. So that will be coming up. In a couple of weeks, we should have all the information for the travel possibilities for 2022. The companies that we reached out to, we're still working on the travel restrictions that are in place right now, but 2022 we should be good to go. But thank you all for participating. And yes, I can hear you, Cindy.
Okay, I have on the calendar, and I think on the collateral that we've developed so far, May 16th. Are you sure it's the 23rd?
Correct. We switched that this week to May the 23rd. A couple of days ago, we realized that it's a holiday, and that was probably my error for not checking the calendar. But, yep, correct. So in my closing part, thank you again for Cindy for supporting. Thank you for you gentlemen for speaking, and thank you. I want to give a shout out to somebody who's really working behind the scenes. It's Greg Sprouse at AUSA headquarters, who caught the people who went to our old link and pushed them forward to this link. That's operating on the fly. He really stood up for that. So Larry, you're up to bat.
Okay, thank you, Eric. I would like to thank our friends in Israel for this great presentation. I'd like to thank General Swan for his tremendous words. National Commander Sachs for your contribution. Cindy, can't leave you out. You did a great job. And of course, all the participants who stayed with us. I hope everybody will rejoin us on the 23rd of May. I would just like to add one note, personal note. Most of my career was in Army Special Forces. And one of the comments that was made is something we firmly believed in. No plan survives the first contact, simply because the enemy didn't have a copy of our plan. So that holds true no matter where you are in the world. You have to adapt, you have to overcome. And I think what we heard from the 73 war, the Israelis did a superb job of adapting and overcoming. And thank God it worked. So I'll close with thanking everybody once again, and I hope to see everybody back here in May for part 2. Thanks.